12 o'clock on your Wednesday afternoon now. Welcome into the halftime show. Tyler Head, currently in the Herndon Chevrolet Studios. Terry Ford, as always, will be sliding in fashionably late, but we've gotten used to that at this point in time. If you've been listening to the show at any period of time or been watching on the Game TV, you know Terry's more of a 12:03, 12:04 kind of joiner of the halftime show, but that's okay. Plenty to get into today. Obviously, talk plenty of football, especially in the 1 o'clock hour when it's football. But I don't know if you can smell it when you go outside, but you can smell the rivalry in the air as we inch closer and closer to the weekend for South Carolina and Clemson on the baseball diamond. Both teams got their midweek games out of the way last night. Now set their sights on each other for the three-game set Friday night here in Columbia, Saturday out in Segra Park, and then Sunday in the Upstate for two top 20 teams in D1 Baseball's rankings. Very excited to see those two teams go head-to-head. But, you know, last night South Carolina did have business to take care of when it came to Gardner-Webb in their ninth game of the season. And while the first couple of innings, it did take South Carolina a little bit of time to get things clicking from an offensive standpoint, busted it wide open in that the fifth inning, scoring all 7 of their runs, batting around the lineup, the whole 9 yards, and cruising to a pretty comfortable victory last night with a slight weather delay thrown in there because, you know, we can't have baseball in the early season without some kind of weather delay, it seems like. But South Carolina, nonetheless, was able to come away and improve to 8-1 on the season.
Hey, how you doing?
Wonderful.
Good to see you.
Hey, I said you were a 12:03 to 12:04 join, so you beat me by a minute.
Hey, I'm early. I'm early. Look at me. Last night, it was, first of all, the weather delay was kooky.
It was.
Because the rain had pretty much stopped, and I've been listening to the broadcast, right? And they just tarped the pitcher's mound and home plate. So that was it.
Well, it was so, and this is funny because the Gamecocks were batting for so long in the bottom of the fifth. Eddie Copper got cold.
Oh, sure.
So they went ahead and went to the bullpen, brought in Ty Good, which again, they had a 6-run lead at that point in time. So you feel pretty comfortable, which hats off to Eddie Copper for a good start last night. But so Ty Good comes in from the bullpen and he just starts throwing ball after ball after ball. And I don't know if he said something to the umpire or Coach Kingston did, but he clearly didn't have a good enough grip on the ball because he didn't have control of it. And that's kind of what ended up leading to, it was only about a 20-minute stoppage. It wasn't that bad. The game still wrapped up in right around 3 hours. But unfortunately, early on in the season, we know all too well you run into a lot of weather delays.
Yeah, it was just so weird because you're hearing the broadcast crew, so they're going, well, the rain's kind of stopped or slowed down a lot, and now all of a sudden, because Kingston did come, I remember listening to the game, Kingston came out, and then the delay happened.
Right. So it's basically my guy can't throw a strike.
Yeah, it was one of those. Well, that was an interesting weather delay.
I think about it, too, and, obviously you do it from a safety standpoint, especially when it comes to lightning and all that kind of stuff, but it's really more been of there are some weather situations that you can't play baseball in, but I feel like in years past, even go back to, 10 years ago or so, they were more likely to play in a little bit more of a downpour compared to what they do now.
No, I don't disagree with that. It's and what's interesting, too, and look, sometimes it works out perfect, and sometimes it's It's like the way they now forecast, because, forecasting is looked at so much more accurate now than it used to, right? We used to always joke about the weather guy on TV, right? A lot of times it wasn't even an AMS-certified meteorologist. It was just some
Bill down the street.
Right.
That's, hey, go stand in front of this map and point at things.
It's like, hey guys, I did supper club dinner theater. Oh, what's coming into the weather?
Well, we're going to give you the name Stormy Rains, and you're going to predict the weather.
Right. So now you have these meteorologists who actually are certified and have gone to school and all this other stuff. So your weather is more accurate. And I think sometimes they'll look at the impending weather coming in. Like I've seen this happen in Major League Baseball where they'll postpone a game or delay it because of this incoming weather event and some front. And guess what? It doesn't come in.
Right.
So basically you delayed the game or you rained it out and you got no rain. But that's just because when it's right, though, you look like a genius.
Right.
It's like, wow, you guys predicted this was going to happen 12 hours ago. So that's why sometimes we see the movement we do, especially in the collegiate game that I've learned in these last few years, is you'll get a lot of that. Well, the weather's tracking this way or that way, so we're moving this because, again, you're not a Major League Baseball player. You're
right.
College baseball, and we don't want weather to either cause any kind of, God forbid, injury or any kind of thing to happen to a college kid, or bring all these people here to watch college kids play.
Yeah.
So I've noticed the dance of the weather is much more prevalent in the college game in the Major League Baseball deal.
I did see, I can't remember, I think, was it Kentucky last night that was playing in like a snowstorm? Somebody was.
Oh, I didn't see that last night.
I came across it on Twitter. I'll see if I can find it.
Find it.
Somebody was playing. It's either snow or a lot of sleet. Like it was, you couldn't see very well on what was going on.
That's crazy. Yeah, find that. That sounds crazy. But I mean, to me, Eddie Copper last night was the big story with 5 innings, pitched well, gave up the 1 home run. Besides that, did a really nice job. Mark Kingston, and we'll get some sound from Kingston. Basically, Eddie's the midweek starter for right now.
Seems to be that way.
And then you look at the pitching with Eli Jones has been good in his 2 outings. Roman Kimball, Matthew Becker look like they're getting themselves to where you can ramp them up and give them bigger pitch counts because they've been throwing decent. Dylan Eskew got knocked around last week. He also didn't get a lot of help from his defense either, but we'll see how it plays out. There's going to be an odd man out. If you're going to make Copper your weeknight guy, your weekday guy, then out of these 4 pitchers, someone's going to end up in the bullpen.
So I found it. It was Michigan and Louisville, I'm assuming playing yesterday in Louisville. And this looks like either a hard rain or sleet because you can't, it's like a screen grab and you can't see anything hardly that's happening in this game. Michigan had a 12-run lead at this point, or a 10-run lead at this point in time, but apparently that was enough to play in.
Do you ever play baseball in crappy weather?
Oh, all the time.
It's miserable.
It is.
It is miserable.
Rain sucks, but to me there was nothing worse than just a cold day. Because you get the bumblebees in your hands. You always inevitably catch the ball off the end of the bat in that game.
Oh, sure. There's nothing worse than hitting it off the end of the bat or the handle in bad weather.
My freshman year of high school, our baseball field was kind of at the bottom of this hill, and we had a river right next to our school. And it was mid to late February or whenever it was, that we were having tryouts my freshman year. And it was at night. It was already like 30 degrees, and we had that wind coming off the river. That might be the coldest I've ever been in my entire life. Out there for like 2 hours. And here's it's tryouts. You're trying to impress the coaches, but you're like standing there like a popsicle.
You can't move. That's the thing. Football, you go out there and you run, right?
Sure.
Football, you're in baseball, you do a share of standing around in the field.
You're standing in line taking grounders in the outfield, and it's like, all right, I still got another like 3 minutes until I'm up.
Yeah, and it's true. I remember high school when you had tryouts. I remember like growing up in Baltimore. It was cold in March.
Oh yeah,
very cold. February, very cold. So yeah, I tell you the worst for me though. The worst. It's my own fault. I was one of these guys, once I realized I wasn't going to be a Major League Baseball player, it was time to go be a slow pitch softball goober.
Of course.
That's
natural progression.
You graduate from, I'm not going to be a Major League Baseball player. Let's go play slow pitch softball.
But you have to take it as seriously as if you were a Major League Baseball player.
Some people go nuts. I mean, I had a guy coaching our team. We were in a championship series, best of 3. My man was drawing up how we were going to be in the field like it was analytics.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, instead of having 4 outfielders, we're going to go 3 outfielders, 5 infielders. We're going to shade over to this way and that way. I'm like, hey, Tim.
Who invited Bobby Cox?
Exactly. You're like, Tim, you understand that the winner gets a keg of beer.
Right.
I mean, I know we love beer. It's serious. But, Tim, this isn't the major leagues.
Right.
So I graduate to, slow pitch softball goober. And I worked in Wisconsin for 2 years. And my first year, I'm playing the softball league, and we're finishing up the year, and these guys are like, hey, man, you want to play fall ball with us? And I'm like, sure, what the heck? I'll play fall ball with you. And that was a great idea until I realized something, Tyler. I'm in Wisconsin.
Also, fall ends in early September, and then it's winter, right?
It's winter. I won't lie to you. I look like the kid from Christmas Story. Out in left center field.
And there's probably guys out there in shorts and T-shirts what are you complaining about?
This ain't all bad, dude. It's 26 degrees. We're good.
I'll say, when it's 30 degrees at a Packers game, that's practically a summer's day.
They're in shorts and T-shirts. I'm going to tell you, I have never been so cold in my life than playing fall league softball. I had a ball hit first game. I'm going back on this ball. Some guy hits a rocket, and I'm going back into I'm playing that day. I either play left center or right center. I'm playing left center. I'm flying in the alley. I get to the warning track. I'm getting near the wall. I reach up, and the ball hits me square in the palm.
Yeah.
I caught it, but then you heard this from the outfield. Ah! They're like, you okay? What happened? Did you pull a hamstring? Did you hit the wall? I said, no. The ball hit me in the palm. They're all looking at me like.
You couldn't feel your hand for the rest of the day.
Oh, for a day, for 2 days. They looked at me like, man, you're kind of a girly man. And I had a batting glove on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Under the glove.
Adding as much layers of protection that you can, and it's not enough.
It was the worst experience of my life. So it's like only like a 7 or 8 game season in fall ball. At the end of it, they're like, and we finished like third. We got in the playoffs and got beat in the semis or something.
Sure.
And they were like, hey, man, it's really cool. We're going to do it next year. I said, that would be a no. That'll be a no.
Talk to me in the summertime.
I'll be out here playing in the summer.
That's right.
No more fun. That was the most cold I've ever been in my life.
Yeah.
Was standing in the outfield in Wisconsin playing fall league softball. Awful. Awful. Never again. Right now, can I be honest with you? I'm getting hypothermia thinking about it.
No, it's like it triggers a memory.
It's bad. It's just all bad. All right, but good news is you get the W. You got a really nice, well-pitched game from Eddie Copper. Gavin Costas, who you're hoping that will get back to being the Gavin Costas you saw last year, especially the first, 3 quarters of the season. Costas goes yard, big 3-run homer. Dylan Brewer again, man. You know, it's early. Nobody. You hope this continues on. He's not going to hit 560, obviously, but Dylan Brewer gets on base, steals the bag at second, causes a bad throw, advances to third. That was part of when South Carolina started to get it going, their mojo offensively. And it's always good, Tyler, to be able to manufacture runs in games where you're not hitting homers.
Absolutely. And we were so close to giving away that however much money was in the pot last night for the Grand Slam giveaway. If one batter before, it would have been the Grand Slam. It was only a 3-run homer for Gavin Costas, which on that, this team is finding a way, as you said, to manufacture home runs without being a power team. Like they're doing solid. You had Cole Messina's home runs this past weekend and Gavin Costas last night, but that's not the only thing they can do. They're playing small ball. They're getting walked in a lot of runs as well, which goes back to that plate discipline that Mark Kingston talks about so much. Like this team's in a really good place offensively right now.
Yeah, you like where it's going, and some guys haven't really gotten it together offensively who will because they have a track record. In the meantime, you're finding a way to score runs, and plus your pitching. Again, you're going to get a big test this weekend, but your pitching you got to be happy with at this point because that was a huge question mark. So all good as the Gamecocks 7-1 over Gardner-Webb last night. We will get back in here tonight in College Station. Gamecocks visiting arguably the most disappointing team in the SEC.
Yeah.
Or at least one of the 2 most disappointing teams in the SEC, Texas A&M Aggies. We'll talk about that on the other side. There's an easy way to beat Texas A&M. We'll give you the formula. It's not rocket science. That's coming up next. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. It is the halftime show as we roll here till 3 on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we cook this baby till 3. Don't forget tonight, we got basketball. Men's basketball Gamecocks traveling off to College Station to take on Texas A&M. 8 o'clock pregame tonight here on the game in Columbia at 107.5 and 100.3 the game in Myrtle Beach. We'll see what happens. Look, Texas A&M's beatable. They're flat out beatable. And like I said in the last segment, could be either, if not one of the most underachieving teams in the SEC. Wade Taylor IV was picked as the preseason SEC Player of the Year.
Yep.
No one's talking about Wade Taylor as the Player of the Year at all.
No, and he's in this 4-game skid that A&M's been on. He's struggled quite a bit in these past couple games.
About 11 points a game or something.
Yeah, same thing with Boots Radford too. Obviously, the two best players that the Aggies have, they've struggled here as of late. And for South Carolina's sake, hopefully they continue to struggle tonight and they can walk out of there with another victory in College Station.
Yeah, look, A&M. It's very simple. You beat A&M by keeping them off the offensive glass and keeping them off the free throw line. That's what they do. If you make Texas A&M just play basketball and shoot the basketball, you beat them.
Sure.
They're shooting under 40% from the floor, under 30% from three. Well, they're one of the worst three-point shooting teams in America.
But they chuck up a lot of shots. They're not good at it, though.
Oh, they just keep throwing them, and they don't make them.
I think they attempted 34 in their last game.
Yeah, they don't make them. In their wins, their big wins this year, they made more threes in their big wins, but they're bread and butter, and they get a lot of practice because they miss a lot of shots.
Sure.
They offensive rebound like a beast. They are, if not the best, one of the best offensive rebounding teams in America. That's the key to tonight's game for South Carolina. Keep the Aggies off the offensive glass. If you do that and don't foul them 50 times, you have a really good chance to pull a W. You do. Real quick, Buzz Williams. Let's get this, Tyler, real fast. Buzz Williams talking about South Carolina, talking about A&M and previewing South Carolina. Let's grab about 2 minutes of Buzz Williams real quick in his pregame presser. Was it yesterday, right, Tyler?
Correct.
Here's A&M coach Buzz Williams talking about the upcoming game tonight.
I think what I've tried to do is just try to help our team understand when we were good and why we were good, and when we haven't been good and why we haven't been good. And then I think our staff's done a really good job on educating our team on what the opponent does well, what we need to be prepared for, and then how that correlates relative to the recipe that we know we have to follow. Whatever it was, 16 or 17 days ago, we beat Tennessee here, and in many respects, that was one of our better wins throughout the season. And then since then, we haven't played well. We've changed some plays, we've changed some players, we've changed some minutes, we've changed some things defensively. But I do think that our guys have been very responsive and very resilient in regards to understanding and accepting what we have to do, and we'll continue to try really hard. The team we play tomorrow is the most improved team in Power 5. Coach has done an incredible job. Their transfers have had an enormous impact on their team. They have the freshman of the year in the league, the kid from South Carolina. He's really, really good. But they play a very distinct style. They're slower than Virginia. They're almost kind of Virginia in the SEC. They're slower than Vanderbilt in regards to pace of play. Very, very skilled on the perimeter, but also they beat you up at the rim. And so knowing what we know about South Carolina, how can we negate hopefully some of that? And then how can we be the best at what we need to be the best at in order to get back to that?
Well, there's Buzz Williams. It's interesting, and he gave, obviously, the Gamecocks a ton of love. I will say this, again, Buzz would know better than I. South Carolina plays Virginia type of tempo.
Yeah, we looked up the numbers
Remember,
yesterday.
Virginia was the slowest in the country, though.
Dead last. South Carolina's not far behind that.
And so when he says they play even slower than Virginia, maybe by your eyes,
yeah.
Buzz, by the metrics, it says Virginia. They're both like turtle slow.
I don't know how much time Buzz Williams spends on Ken Palm. So
yeah, I mean, we do way too much Ken Palm. Buzz just watches film.
Yeah.
But the point is, yes, South Carolina plays very slow. But Texas A&M doesn't like play fast either. They just don't play as slow as the Gamecocks. And it is a tribute to what South Carolina's done this year and how their transfers have all meshed together. And so it's been a one for all. And there hasn't been the stuff that can happen when your transfer portal goes sideways. Arkansas.
Right.
So, you know, South Carolina tonight, going on the road to College Station, obviously get off to a decent start. You don't want to get behind double digits, and then you're chasing. Really, and South Carolina isn't built to be a chase-type team anyway, because, again, they don't have a lot of possessions.
Yeah.
So have a decent start. Keep A&M off the glass. Don't put them on the line 30 times, and just be you. And if you follow that formula, you can walk out of College Station with a win.
As we've talked about with every single game this year, just play your brand of basketball. Keep them under 70 points. That usually translates to a win. Now, something I was just thinking about a few minutes ago. I'm assuming they're going to be without Miles Studi again tonight. We have not heard any update since the weekend as far as his injury goes. So I imagine you're going to be without him tonight. But as we've seen, you can do just fine. Zach Davis stepped up in a big way this past weekend, and obviously they've dealt with him not being on the court a couple times this year already.
Right. Yeah, does it stink to lose your best three-point shooter? Sure. But you know what? They found ways, like, and B.J. Mack was good from three, in Oxford. And Jacoby Wright made a couple of big threes. They have found the way to get their business done, right?
Yeah.
They did. Even if a guy's hurt, or Michi has a 1 for 10, or Talon Cooper has a rough night. Very few of those, or BJ Mack has gone through stretches where he's really struggled on offense as well.
Right.
Jacoby Wright has had some stretches where he's had some issues on offense. The guy that's probably been the most consistent on offense is Colin Murray Boyles.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's interesting because he really, all of a sudden, he just exploded, right? All of a sudden, he went from, okay, we're gonna bring him off the bench and play him some minutes. We're gonna kind of slowly get him indoctrinated. Look, the MVP of the team might be Stephen Clark, who walked into Lamont Paris and said, "Coach, you got to play the freshman. He's so much better than me. You got to play him. I'll come off the bench. You got to start. You got to get him in the starting lineup."
Sure.
And since then, Colin Murray Boyles has probably been the most consistent offensive player. Because the other guys have had their moments where, they've had really good games and also had games of struggle. But South Carolina finds a way on the offensive end of the court to get it done. And defensively, they just grind. They chase you. They make things difficult. They might not be, efficiency-wise, they're not Houston. But they have been a basketball team that defensively has gotten better and better and better as the year has gone along, and they found who they are and what they have to do to win on both ends of the court.
And you're facing another team, much like Ole Miss this past weekend, that really needs to win this game to help their cause for the NCAA tournament. A&M finds themselves in the first 4 out category as of right now, and really can't afford to lose any of these final couple of games of the regular season for them from South Carolina's standpoint. And we talked to bracketologist James Fletcher III from On3 in the 11 o'clock hour. South Carolina, it doesn't take a whole lot more for them to lock up a spot in the NCAA tournament. Certainly winning tonight goes a long way in doing that. It's another opportunity for a quad 1 win as well, and then we'll see how they fare against the likes of Florida, Tennessee, and Mississippi State to wrap up the season. But one game at a time, and getting a win tonight would be huge.
And you do smell that desperation coming from A&M, just like you said, Ole Miss. And when you go up against a desperate team, it's cornered. That's why I say you got to start solid. Because they want to get out there and punch you in the face and get a big lead at home, and then you have to scramble. If you can just hang it, remember the good start at Tennessee.
Sure.
A good start in Oxford over the weekend. Get off to a good start. Don't get behind by a lot, and play your game. And that can pull you a win against A&M. And if you get the win against A&M, you won 2 straight on the road. You got 3 left. 2 of them are at home. None of them are going to be easy. This one's not going to be easy because A&M does have talent. Right. But if you can win this one, you're sitting in a really good spot. Really good spot. All right, and again, tonight's 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip, correct? 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip, right here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia, and our affiliate 100.3 The Game in Myrtle Beach. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're running up until 3 here on The Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, as we roll up until 3 o'clock here on the game. 803-446-6100. That is the Firehouse Up text line. Love Chevy phone line as well. If you want to jump in and yap with us, have at it. Either way, we'll do the Firehouse Up text the hour coming up here in just a little bit. So we have the Combine going. We talked a lot about the Combine yesterday. And we would see, different players where they could end up, possibly the South Carolina players in the draft. And we'll get more to it in football. The NFL folks were yapping yesterday, and I found a lot of quite interesting things being said by some of the NFL owners when you put, microphones and cameras in front of them.
Right.
It's interesting. I think you saw, and I want to zero in on this, you were telling me this morning you saw, I forget which website it was, that said Spencer Rattler's the number one guy with something to prove at the Combine out of the top 10 guys in their who was it again?
Yeah, so Michael Middlehurst Schwartz, who writes for USA Today, is one of their lead NFL writers, put out an article yesterday that said top 10 NFL draft prospects with the most to prove at the 2024 Scouting Combine, and Spencer Rattler was right there at the at the top of that list. And going back to what we talked about yesterday with his decision to throw, I very much agree with that, especially when you don't have Williams and May and Daniels and guys like that, the top-end quarterbacks that are going to be throwing at the Combine. And we know about Spencer Rattler's arm strength from what we've seen here. He has the opportunity. I'm not going to say he's going to rocket himself into being a first-round pick by any means, but maybe he could sneak himself into the back half of that second round if things go well enough out there over the next couple of days.
Yeah, that's the thing. He has a chance to really improve himself. Because, look, we talked about this yesterday, he's not going to wow anybody running the 40 or his vertical or his shuttle run, which we were laughing yesterday about. A lot of times they set up two cones at midfield and then they take to the quarterbacks. Okay, whoever does the fastest shuttle, you get 3 points.
Right.
But what Spencer Rattler can do that's going to matter to NFL people is how Spencer Rattler throws the football and how he ends up, and really more importantly to me, because, again, you're throwing the ball. Who's covering these wide receivers?
Nobody.
Okay, who's blitzing the quarterback?
Nobody.
Who's disguising coverages?
Nobody.
Who's stunning and bringing heat up the gut to the quarterback?
Nobody.
So, again, there's only so much you can see. Now, again, if you go out there, right, I will say this, though, to be fair. Let's say you throw 50 balls and you only complete 40 and you scatter 10 throws everywhere.
Sure.
I'm going to go, wow, dude, you did that with no blitzing, no pass rush, no coverage.
I was going to say, you can't, make a substantial climb in these kind of drills, but you can take a nice tumble if you're not careful. And, yeah, if you're out there overthrowing them by 10 feet when you got nobody in your face, yeah, it's going to be a problem.
That's not good. So, yeah, you can go out there and screw it up. But I think the most value that Spencer Rattler is going to bring is when he's on the whiteboard.
Yes.
And when he's interviewing. I think he's going to help himself a lot there.
And there's a lot of narratives, and going back to this article from USA Today yesterday, there's a lot of narratives that I feel like Spencer Rattler has the opportunity to shake over the next couple of days, the Combine and at Pro Day coming up in a couple weeks as well, in terms of what the perception of him is. Because when we go back to 2 years ago, him coming into South Carolina, there was, it's character issues. He's very careless with the football, puts the ball in bad situations. And this article yesterday has one sentence in here that says, but NFL coaching staffs might grill him in interviews about his inconsistency and suspect decision-making. Yes, 2 years ago, that was a concern for Spencer Rattler, but I think he's done a lot this past year. And looking at some of the statistics.
Bring the stat up of turnover-worthy plays.
Yeah, so essentially, and that doesn't always mean it's an interception. It's essentially when you're putting the ball in danger. If you throw into triple coverage, it doesn't matter if your receiver catches the ball and scores a touchdown. That's a turnover-worthy play.
These are the amount of bad throws.
Yes.
These are bad decisions and bad throws. Go ahead.
And his first year here at South Carolina, in line with double-digit interceptions, he had 22 turnover-worthy plays.
That's roughly almost 2 a game on average.
Essentially. This past year, 11. Cut that number in half. And again, it doesn't mean he doesn't still do those things from time to time, but you and I were talking about this earlier. When you look at the situational aspects of when his bad throws were, down against Georgia, trying to make something happen at halftime before Tennessee, when you had this pass rush in your face the entire time, situationally, I'm not saying it's completely inexcusable, but you can kind of pick it apart a little bit compared to what he's done in the past.
Well, late in the game against Florida, remember, they had to make a play down the field, and he threw it. So he threw into double, triple coverage because he's trying to make a play at the end of the game when you have 0.5% chance to win at that point.
Right.
Or, late in the game against Clemson when you're trying to make a play. So some of the turnover-worthy throws were made in dire situations where, yeah, you even knew it wasn't a great throw, but you got to do something.
It was better than holding on to it and getting sacked.
Exactly.
Essentially.
So that's the thing about it. And no one's saying that on the other 6 or 7 turnover-worthy throws, they weren't, oh, my God, what were you thinking? But I'll say this. And look, again, love me the analytics. I'm an analytic guy. I love it. But the eye test of watching every Spencer Rattler snap last 2 years, last year was night and day compared to the year before. And the year before, there were a decent amount of throws where he went, no, what are you doing? No. I could count on one hand those type of throws last year where you went, oh, what are you doing? Oh, my God. So he improved so much under Dow Loggins, and to his credit himself, of taking some of that gunslinger out of him and making smarter decisions with the football. So I'm with you. I think the narrative of he's still inconsistent and makes bad decisions, I think that was 2 years ago. I don't think that was last year.
Yeah,
I'm with you.
I think he's improved mightily. And talking about Dow Loggins, and we go back to Spencer Rattler going into last season, how excited he was to work with a guy like that, who, again, it's been a decade plus in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. Like, I can only imagine, who knows the amount of connections that Dow Loggins has and the two people that he's talked to at the next level himself, how much that is going to help him in this transition into the next level as well.
Yeah, Dow Loggins worked with a lot of quarterbacks. And so Dow Loggins understands what it takes for you on the collegiate level to get yourself to the next level. And even Spencer Rattler said, being around Loggins, he's teaching me how to be a pro.
Right. And
I've said this before. We had Spencer Rattler in here, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 times. And he always came off as a guy. He carried himself like a pro.
Sure.
He handled himself like a pro. He would talk to, like, we had people come in when he was here, and he'd sign some autographs to people, talk to them, handle himself the right way. Handle himself the right way on the air, off the air. We took him in to record some stuff. There was nothing where he walked away and you went, ooh, wow, that guy is immature, or that guy is whatever. He handled himself well in every one of those situations. He's going to handle himself well in these interviews.
Sure.
Or you watch him in the post games. I mean, we saw him behind the scenes a bit when he was here, but in front of microphones, handled himself fantastic for 2 seasons. I mean, you saw the leadership piece. Nick Harbor drops a pass. He goes over to talk to Nick Harbor. There was conversation about him and how he dealing with the offensive line during a game when things were you never saw him get up.
And, hey, if he ripped into them, he would have been justified in doing that.
He never Tom Brady'd him.
He was running for his life a lot of the season.
Yes, and he never pulled a Tom Brady on the sideline with him.
Right.
You never saw him get up from getting sacked and call an offensive lineman out or glare at a guy or humiliate a guy on the field, even if they deserved it.
Sure.
He never did it. And I say this a lot. I always judge when things are going poorly, how you handle yourself. Everybody handles himself well when things are going great, right?
Of course.
Everybody does. If you are in a bad mood and things are going great, you're just, kind of a jackass.
Right.
So how do you handle yourself when things are going poorly? I watched that guy at times last year when he was getting hit and sacked and chased and hurried, and he was running for his life. He was at the sideline getting a drink of Gatorade and somebody hit him. And he handled himself as well as you can handle yourself in that situation for a college quarterback.
Right.
I don't know how you could have. Again, I wasn't over there listening, but everything I saw, everything I heard, he couldn't have handled himself better in some of those situations. Right. I think he's going to do really well in the interviews, and he's going to do really well on the whiteboard.
Yeah, absolutely.
I really do. All right, so we'll get back in here. Firehouse Sub text the hour, 803-404-6100. It's Terry Ford, it's Tyler Head. It's the halftime show. We're hanging here till 3 on the game. All right, time to get the Firehouse up. Text the hour at 803-404-6100. What you got there, Tyler Head?
Yeah, Aaron weighs in and says, Terry, on top of the cold in Wisconsin, tell me you had the added difficulty of being of the unlimited arc slow pitch softball, I guess transitioning into playing that.
Oh, they didn't have the unlimited arc in the fall league, thank God.
Okay, what is the unlimited arc?
You can throw that thing as high as you want.
Oh, really?
There's arc limits in a lot of leagues.
Okay, I did not know
There are
this.
some leagues where there's, dude, trust me, I played in way too many of these. Some have unlimited arc where you can
Okay.
just chuck that thing in the air. Remember, strike zone, there's an actual strike zone in slow pitch softball.
Yeah, believe it or
and
not.
it cuts different. And remember, the ball is coming at an angle.
Right,
So it can come down in a certain spot, and you don't, and it's a strike when you're like, seriously?
right.
So unlimited arc is very difficult. If somebody knows what they're doing with unlimited arc, it's very difficult. You can hit it because it's going a mile an hour.
Sure.
But it's very difficult because the arc's the thing, man.
Yeah.
When I went from baseball to softball, that first year was a disaster. Because I'm looking at something coming straight in, dudes are throwing fast, whatever. Things going a half a mile an hour, and it's an arc.
Yeah.
And you got to time it. I was a mess. I was a mess the first year. It was awful.
I was going to say, what's the highest you've ever seen somebody throw with an unlimited
real
arc?
high. I mean, I think hit an airplane. Oh, my God. It's just because some guys. Well, I was in an unlimited arc tournament once, and it was just wow. Some of those guys were so good.
Yeah.
Because tournaments, again, you're trying to get to, you start
sure.
like getting really good dudes. It was so tough to hit. It was crazy. So yes, Texter, that league, thank God, was not unlimited arc because I would have volunteered to strike out.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't dealing with that. I couldn't feel my feet by the third inning of every game. So, yeah, unlimited arc's a whole different ball game, man. Whole different ball game, unlimited arc. I'll tell you what also, because when I was in high school after practice, the girls were also practicing, softball.
Yeah.
And I had never hit against that kind of pitching in softball.
It's different.
And obviously it's closer. And they throw risers.
It's the underhand.
Yeah, and they're
delivery.
firing them, and they're rising and
Right.
everything. So again, we're dudes, we're guys, we're all cool. We're walking by, talking, whatever. We're talking to them. We weren't being mean. We were just
Sure,
talking
sure.
to them, and they were finishing up practice or whatever. And the girl one of the pitchers was throwing to a catcher, and I was a good friend. Go, hey, mind if I take a swing? She said, no, come on in. So I get up there, and I get in the batter's box. I'm ready to roll. I get in there, and I'm like, you gonna pitch it? She goes, I've thrown 3 of them already. That thing, they're so close,
Yeah.
and it's rising, and it's fast, and I'm like, okay, I'm done here. Thank you.
Yeah.
It was bad.
It's a completely different animal, for sure. If you're used to, again, I think back to like when I played baseball. If I played like wiffle ball with some friends and the difference in the speed between those two compared to see like actual live pitching, it's kind of a similar situation between that and softball. And again, just you would think the delivery point would be something that wouldn't throw you off, but when you're used to seeing it come out here and it's coming out down here, that throws you way off.
And they're so close, so the miles per hour in relation to the mound from home plate makes whatever they're throwing really faster.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, the release point is in a whole different spot. And then 3, their fastballs rise up through the strike zone.
Right.
Oh, I couldn't hit it. I think I fouled off like maybe I put 1 ball in play in like 6 pitches.
You know what? Good enough.
Fouled off a couple. Didn't see the other ones went flying by me. I'm like, thank God I'm hitting baseball. I was like, oh my God, this is awful.
It's like, well, I won't be a professional baseball player or a professional softball player.
No, I'm screwed. I'm screwed. But yeah, to the texter's point, an unlimited arc is another beast of an animal compared to. And look, guys will try to go over the limit of what the arc is. It's not like people are measuring the arc.
Sure.
You just have
It's
an
an
idea,
eyeball. Yeah.
right? You got an idea when a dude's going over it. But yeah, it's a whole different ballgame. But I appreciate the text, 803-404-6100. That text was sent by a softball guy.
Oh, without a doubt. I didn't even know that was a rule.
Oh yeah, there's unlimited arc, and it's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. All right. We will in the 1 o'clock hour, top of the hour, 1 o'clock. By the way, I think I sent you the text. I'm really happy I remembered because I've had this really bad mental block on guests, and I don't know why. I have this like empty space in my head where I forget guests that I book.
I think you need to go to the men's clinic.
I think I do for just specific guest brain fog.
There you go.
It's weird. But I sent the text to you to make sure that when I forgot, you would remember. And Graham Harmon from Gig'em Gazette, basically one of the sites that covers Texas A&M. Graham covers Texas A&M basketball. We're going to get him on here in just a few minutes, top of the hour, 1 o'clock. It's usually football. But, we want to get you a little back story and a little behind the curtain, so to speak, about Texas A&M hoops, since it's a big game tonight in College Station for the men. That's 1 o'clock. So we'll talk to him about that. And we will circle back to women. Women are at it on Thursday in Fayetteville. It's a late start. I think that's 8:30 pre 9 o'clock tip that will be here on 107.5 The Game in Columbia. And that should, look, nothing's 100%. Always got to say that. But this should be an easy W.
You would think. Considering how they've handled their last couple of opponents, particularly Kentucky, you feel like South Carolina should be okay.
Yeah, and basically you're going to wrap up the regular season undefeated and go into the SEC tournament, where I'm thinking you're going to get a visit from LSU. In the final, most likely.
Yeah.
Now, LSU can get beat now.
Yeah.
They've only lost 4 games this year, I believe, but there have been games where they've been just off.
Right. And look, they controlled, 3/4 of that game in Baton Rouge a while back, but South Carolina, as they typically do, take over in the fourth quarter. Cardoso will be back at that point in time. She's just getting extra rest as of right now. So even if you theoretically did match up with them again, say in the finals of the SEC tournament, I feel pretty good about South Carolina's chances.
I think I know the easy answer to this. Is that the game where when you're South Carolina, you walked off that court? Is that the one that galvanized you knowing what you thought you knew? You follow what I'm saying to you?
Yeah, because that was the most adversity they'd faced up to that point. And again, you never thought South Carolina was going to lose the game necessarily. It's like, okay, when does that takeover happen? And again, it eventually happened in the fourth quarter. Kamala Cardoso had a great game. I want to say Raven Johnson was a big part of that as well.
Remember, Bree Hall hit the 2 gigantic threes.
That's what it was. So, yeah, I think they just hadn't been tested a whole lot up to that point. And that was kind of, again, their affirmation that, hey, yeah, we can do this.
Yeah, we got this. And that was in Baton Rouge, hostile crowd, defending national champions. That was the win, I think, where everybody walks off the court, looks at each other, and they say, you know what? We're pretty bleeping good. All right, we'll come back in here. Like I said, our buddy Graham talking Texas A&M next on the Halftime Show on The Game. All right, let's say you want to improve the sound system in your house, inside or outside. You're saying, wow, I can do both. You can if you call the experts Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. You call, you say, hey, guys, Michael, Evan, crew, come on out. We want the best speakers, the best sound we can for the house. Sonos, one word. The Sonos 5.1 surround sound, the Sonos Beam, the Sonos mini subwoofers, 2 6-inch wall speakers. And you can go to the Facebook page of Integrated Media and see where they've installed these speakers in homes. And again, inside or outside, it sounds like you're at the game. It sounds like the movie is actually happening in your basement man cave living room. It is phenomenal sound. If you're looking to upgrade your sound, or maybe your Wi-Fi experience, your internet, maybe you want to install TVs in different areas, maybe you want it outside and inside, just call the experts Integrated Media, 803-948-8327. Give those folks a ring. Again, the experts at Integrated Media. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game as we roll till 3 o'clock. We'll get to some football. Trust me, got a ton of it. We'll talk about some of the transfer portal additions for South Carolina and maybe peeking to their possible impact on what they could do in the upcoming season. But first, let's talk some Texas A&M basketball. Of course, in College Station tonight, the Gamecocks taking on the Aggies. It'll get rolling 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip. Eastern here on the game in Columbia at 107.5 and also our Myrtle Beach affiliate at 100.3. Let's get Graham Harmon in here from the Gig'em Gazette covering Texas A&M. Graham, thanks for jumping on, man. We really appreciate it, first of all.
I appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, so, and again, you've watched this whole season, so I'm telling you nothing you don't know, but this is a weird team, man. They've beaten Iowa State. They've beaten Tennessee. They've won some games. They beat Kentucky, and now they're on a 4-game losing streak, including losing at home to an Arkansas team that put the D in the word dysfunction. I guess the best question is, I'll put it eloquently, what the hell's the deal?
I've really been asking myself that a lot this season. Watching this team, it's. Well, I won't say it's as frustrating as watching Jimbo Fisher coach football, but it's close. There's been kind of a pattern with Buzz Williams since he's been at A&M, where the team really kind of, like, they start off really bad and then they hit their stride mid-season, and then they're just like a monster to face by the time the SEC tournament comes around. You've seen that each of the past 2 seasons with A&M. And we kind of thought we hit that point when we got a big win over Tennessee, big win over Missouri right before that, close win over Florida right before that. 3-game win streak. We're saying, hey, we're in the clear, and now we're on this 4-game skid. Blowout loss to Alabama, wasn't even competitive. Blowout loss at Tennessee, they got revenge there. You never know what you're going to get. Almost, it feels like watching this team from night to night. So it's been a little frustrating.
Graham, and I'll ask you this. That Vanderbilt loss, they lost it at the buzzer at Vandy, a game that, again, like you said, you got a 3-game win streak going. You've beaten Florida. You've beaten Tennessee in that deal, plus you went to Missouri, and then you lose to Vandy. Do you think that the stink of that has just carried over? Because then it was the Alabama blowout, losing somehow to Arkansas at home, and then obviously what happened in Knoxville. Could that Tennessee game have been something that has also beaten the Aggies moving forward? I'm just throwing stuff against the wall.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's not much to shake your confidence like losing to Vanderbilt in
yes.
Anything not baseball. But I think that just watching that game, the problem with A&M most of the year has been shot making. Their 2 guards, Wade Taylor and Tyrese Radford, are really the source of most of the offense, and they were playing well against Vanderbilt. They were making a lot of difficult shots, but the thing was is that they were playing so lackadaisically on the other end that Vanderbilt was making a lot of shots, and so I guess with that buzzer beater there at the end, it just did kind of feel like a bit of a shock to the system, especially having to go to Alabama directly following that. And that was just a kind of a blitzkrieg from that point. And I mean, they know their backs are against the wall now. Really, they had a strong non-conference, and they've kind of been in the field and the bracketology and all that most of the year. Now they're in the first 4 out, and they really can't afford to lose. I mean, maybe one more game if they have a strong showing in the SEC tournament. They lose maybe one more regular season game, they could scrape in, but really they need to go undefeated down the stretch if they want to feel solidly in the field.
Graham Harmon hanging out with us from Gig'em Gazette. We are talking Texas A&M hoops, of course, tonight here on the game in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach. Gamecock basketball, 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip from College Station. You bring up the struggles offensively. I mean, under 40% from the floor overall, under 30% from 3. I mean, that has been obviously the issue. The good news is, though, when A&M's on their game, they're the best offensive rebounding team, arguably, in America, and they get to the free throw line a good amount. Is the key, if you're playing A&M, keep them off the line and keep them off the backboard and force them to shoot, and then you got them where you want them? Is that how it feels?
Yeah. I mean, to a degree, as much as anyone can do that. Anderson Garcia, he's got a place on an NBA roster if just for his ability to rebound the basketball. I mean, he is a monster on the offensive boards, They call him the Dominican Dennis Rodman, actually, the nickname for him. He is a star in that respect. Shoots 35% from three, doesn't take a lot of them, but those are the kind of skills I think that could translate to the league. The thing is about getting to the line, they just, outside of Wade Taylor, who is, I think, 82%, pretty much everybody else is pretty bad from the free throw line. Tyrese Radford, 68%, Henry Coleman, 67%. No one else really over 70%. Well, actually, you know what? As I look at my little stat sheet here, Wildens Levesque, Gamecock fans will be familiar with him. Looks like he's shooting 87.5% on the year, but he's not. He actually doesn't get a whole lot of minutes. He starts most games, but he's not in there as much as Garcia or a guy like Henry Coleman. So, if you can keep A&M off the offensive glass, you're pretty much definitely going to beat them. They're the number one offensive rebounding team in America. I think 18 a game.
Yeah.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah, their offensive rebounding percentage is crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, if you can do that, that's a great strategy, but it's just that's easier said than done. For sure.
Right. Graham Harmon hanging out with us from Gig'em Gazette. We are talking Texas A&M hoops here on the halftime show. I guess another thing, too, and you brought up the defensive effort against Vanderbilt. Buzz Williams is a guy that is, hung his hat on defense, whether it's Marquette, Virginia Tech, he has at times at A&M. Are you surprised by their inconsistencies on the defensive end of the court this year?
I really am. I wrote earlier, so I'm actually from Columbia, so I have a lot of interest in the Gamecocks. And so watching them this year, I wrote earlier that South Carolina almost looks like the team that A&M was supposed to be this year with the way they play defense and play hard and all that sort of thing. A&M really has not looked like a Buzz Williams team in that respect this year, except for the kind of poor offense. The defense has been a big disappointment. It's just inconsistent. There are times where they play with a lot of effort, but Wade, I mean, he's a great player. Will make just eye-popping shots from time to time, but he'll get lost sometimes. You got guys. Solomon Washington is another guy who I think has a chance in the association. He long, very athletic wing defender. He's kind of coming into his own with a little bit of an expanded offensive game as the season has rolled on. He'll be giving great effort night to night. Garcia, who I mentioned, great effort night to night. But it's really just been disappointing how much of a crapshoot it's been with almost the rest of the roster.
Hey, Graham, you bring up Wade Taylor again, the preseason SEC Player of the Year, voted before the season started. He's really struggled here in this 4-game losing streak. What, averaging like 11 points a game and just struggling to make buckets? What's up? Do you think he's just trying to do too much at this point?
It's almost like he's getting worn down, honestly. The team is so reliant on him and Radford. And Radford was out for a couple games with some sort of strange they never quite said what it was. He said he had trouble breathing, and so he missed like 5 games. But Taylor, he like I say, he'll make some eye-popping shots from time to time. But it's almost been a little bit of let's all stand around and wait for Wade to do something. And he has the ability to do that, but more often than not, it turns into him just throwing up random shots. And so that's a lot of why his field goal percentage is down in the mid-30s right now, because he's really, I mean, sometimes it's late clock, almost mid-court, you're going to jack up a 3. And sometimes those will go in. He's a guy who can make that shot from time to time. I think in the opening part of the game against Alabama, he made like 3 shots in a row that were like step back, like Luka Doncic looking threes. And then he was just quiet for the rest of the game. So he's definitely struggled, and I do think it has a lot to do with the load that he has shouldered near the beginning of the season.
Graham Harmon with us, Gig'em Gazette, talking some A&M hoops here on the game. All right, Buzz Williams, there's been some talk about some openings around the country, and Buzz Williams' name pops up. Look, A&M pays everybody well. I mean, the mascot makes 7 figures in College Station. Give me what's the thought? I mean, after last year with that great run at the end of the year by A&M, and they played so well, like you had brought up, and Buzz Williams has a resume of being a guy that got deep in the tournament at Marquette. He got Virginia Tech in the tournament. What's the feeling of Buzz Williams around College Station? Are people going, oh, no, you don't want to lose Buzz Williams, got to find a way to keep him more? Oh, he's been okay, but if he leaves, it's not like we're, going to, it's not the end of the world.
Well, I'll tell you what, if you peruse TexAgs, you'll see quite a few people calling for his job. Honestly, they are a little disappointed with the lack of specifically NCAA tournament results at this point. He's made the tournament once in his this is 5th year at A&M. He could make it this year. Like I say, some things are going to have to fall right, but it's not looking great right now. We had a deep NIT run 2 years ago, but that's not going to
Right.
save your job. And we had a bad draw last year, hot shooting Penn State team and Buzz's style of defense, very susceptible to teams who shoot well from three. So we really kind of got blown out in that one. People were hoping for a more favorable draw this year with a good season, but it's with the way things have gone. But the other thing you have to consider is that A&M doesn't have an athletic director in place right now.
Right.
They're still looking for somebody to fill the hole after Ohio State hired Ross Bjork away, who was a guy that A&M fans were fine seeing leave after he tried to hire Mark Stoops and got that turned back at the last second. But Bjork gone, no AD. I don't know who would fire Buzz unless they get someone put in place. I think he at least probably has one more year. But you know what? I was saying that about Jimbo too. But I would think that Buzz has one more year, as I think Wade is going to be in school for another year. I think they'll let Buzz kind of have that one last ride, maybe see if he can do something. And, this is assuming that this year kind of ends the way it has been going.
All right, last thing for you, Graham. What's your feeling about tonight? I mean, again, home game, desperation, like you said. What's your gut tell you about tonight?
I'm hard-pressed to pick the Aggies in this one. I don't know why they are favored. I'm really confused seeing that line. I think the Gamecocks will win this one. I think it will be close. I think the Aggies will give it their best shot. Unlike football, A&M students and fans, they will stop showing up to basketball if you're playing poorly. So I actually don't expect a great crowd tonight. I think that the Gamecocks will come in there. They're at a much better place, much more confident than the Aggies are right now. I think when all's said and done, South Carolina will take this one.
Graham Harmon, Gig 'em Gazette, covering Texas A&M. We appreciate you, man. Now you're on our list. We'll bug you and stalk you, but we appreciate it. Thanks for jumping in.
Anytime. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, man. All right. That's Graham Harmon from Gig 'em Gazette. And again, tonight, 8 o'clock pre, 8:30 tip, South Carolina at College Station to take on A&M. We'll talk more about that, obviously, what's trending at 2. We'll get into it next. Let's get to some football, and more football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game. Men's Clinic of South Carolina. Dr. Dan and the staff, we've talked about it a ton here. If you're just not feeling like yourself, whether it's brain fog, lack of sleep, your workouts stink, your recovery from your workouts stink more than your workouts, you have a lack of drive in life. It could be professional, personal, sexual, whatever it is. You just don't feel right. You don't feel like you. It could just be low testosterone. It's just one way to find out. I know we're guys, we're dudes. We don't like to admit anything, talk about anything. I guess that's kind of how we're wired. But just call the Men's Clinic at 803-875-MENS. Set up a confidential, free consultation with Dr. Dan and the staff. Tell them your story. If they think it is low T, they'll do some lab work. If it comes back low testosterone, they will put together a program personalized for you to make you feel like you again. It's not going to be some cookie cutter deal where you text somebody and get some thing in the mail in a SAC, personalized for you. It's the Men's Clinic of South Carolina, 803-875-MENS. All right, Ed Bam, we get some football. Sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. I will say one more thing about when we talk to Graham. We talk about how A&M is the best offensive rebounding team in America.
Sure.
And they get to the line a lot. But Graham said, yeah, they get to the line a lot. They just don't have a lot of guys that can make them.
That's the problem.
Bad shooting team. And so tonight, if you can keep A&M off the glass, I still say keep them off the line.
Yeah.
If you can do those two things, just force them to shoot the basketball, which they're really bad at. They're one of the worst teams in the country shooting from three. They're one of the worst teams in the country shooting from two. Just have them shoot the ball, box them out. You're going to give up some offensive rebounds because they're good at it.
Sure.
But you just can't give up an avalanche of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you don't want to put them on the line 30 times because then if they make 20, that's 20 points that they wouldn't have gotten in a lot of ways because they can't shoot.
Right.
So, anyway.
Something else he also brought up, I'd completely forgotten about the Mark Stoops to A&M thing.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, again, the reason why Ross Bjork is not there anymore. That was like was it like a 12-hour period where that was kind of, it became a thing, then it wasn't, because that was the last weekend of the regular season, the day of the Clemson game.
Yeah, remember Stoops? Remember the whole thing with Stoops, and it was all weird with the presser, and
Because they'd beaten Louisville that day.
Yeah, and I won't lie, I thought that was just like Stoops. Like I thought maybe Russ Bjork or his people had reached out to Mark Stoops' people. Would Stoops be interested in talking about the gig?
Sure.
And the one thing that I'm going to give Mark Stoops people credit for is they keep Mark Stoops in play every offseason for gigs.
He's legitimately one of the highest paid coaches in all of college football.
The Stoops thing is crazy to me because, again, not to be mean, he's a good, solid head football coach, and Kentucky's been a solid program. But I don't look at Mark Stoops and go, wow, if you could get him like in a big-time program, wow, oh my God. I just don't look at him that way.
And the A&M fan base shared your sentiment. So when that stuff started to leak, there was a major backlash, not to the point of like Shiano at Tennessee or anything like
bad.
that. But in a similar vein, they're like, we don't want this guy to be our head coach. And very quickly, things started going the other direction.
Yeah, it was so weird because, again, look, I like Mark Stoops. There's nothing against Mark Stoops. I just don't look at him as a level one coach.
Right.
I look at him as a good, solid football coach who a perfect storm has put him in the perfect spot that he can do Stoops things and win 7 games, 8 games, 6 games. A couple times he'll pop double digits for you.
Sure.
When the world, the moon and the sun and everybody hooks up together. But I don't see him as a guy, if you put him in a place where they had a lot of expectation and a lot of resources and a lot of dough, and they said, Mark, go get them. You know what I think you get? 6, 7, 8 wins, an occasional 10-win season.
So, it's going to be really funny. Let's say Elko gets off to like, I don't know, a 1-4 start. They're going to be people in the fan base. Should have gotten Stoops.
I'm going to get Stoops.
What's wrong with those guys?
Because I'm like, and don't get me wrong, I feel creeped out to agree with A&M fans because,
Sure.
They're wackadoodles.
Sure.
But, yeah, if I was an A&M football fan, they said they're this close to hiring Mark Stoops, I'm like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? If we want to be like a big-time program, what are we doing? So, yeah, and you're right. Old Russ, he took a beating on that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Now, again, how serious was A&M? I don't know, but it got out there, man.
It's one of those things that you do wonder if they allowed some of that information to leak just to gauge the interest. What would people think if we did hire Mark Stoops? And it quickly went the other way, and it's like, all right, we'll tear up that contract. We'll go with the other guy.
I absolutely think it was a trial balloon. You hit it. You hit the nail on the head. I think we talked about it here on the show. When it happened, is like that felt like a trial balloon.
Well, I remember because, again, that was the day of the South Carolina Clemson game, and you and I were walking out of Willie B, going back to, Sound and Images, and I'd seen it on Twitter, and I was like, did you see this? And we both kind of looked at each other like, really? Stoops to A&M? But it seemed like a done deal at that point in time, and, again, quickly became unraveled after that.
That was one of those it was like surreal. And all of a sudden it picked up steam like really quick.
Sure.
And then once it got out there, it lost steam really quick. So very interesting. All right, we're talking football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. 40 years in the Midlands. The best selection and best quality in windows and doors, awdsc.com. All right, and we're going to kick this in the next segment as well, but Gamecock Central put a very interesting post about the transfer portal guys, just kind of refreshing your memory on them and maybe what they can bring to the table as this season pops. And they did 2 parts on the list, and we'll start with the guy that I love. I love this move. I love Jared Brown from Coastal Carolina.
Yeah.
This guy is he eats yak yards. He's one of the best yak yard guys in the country. And now where is he going to play? He's going to play the slot where he seems like he would be perfect. But if you look at all the receivers they have, somebody's got to go wide. You think Nick Harbor in a perfect world will be out wide at one spot. Somebody else got to go wide. Now, are they going to maybe rotate guys in and out between slot and boundary? I don't know. So you might see Jared Brown in a bunch of different spots. You might see him on jet sweeps as well. He's a very interesting piece that Dow Loggins can use. I really like this guy.
And that's the biggest question surrounding that wide receiver room in general. When you talk about the guys that you brought in, you don't have that definitive guy that, is kind of a couple inches taller than everybody that you can definitively say, hey, he's our wide. But again, Jared Brown gives you the opportunity to move him around. He uses him in a lot of different ways, as do pretty much all the guys they brought in from the transfer portal as far as the wide receiver spot goes. So a lot of new toys for Dow Loggins to work with, and we'll see how he integrates those guys in the offense.
Yeah, and the other one, and we're not talking about this guy enough because he might be the guy where you go, wow, should have thought more about that dude, is Oscar Attaway from North Texas. Look, we get it. Rocket Sanders is who we focus on because 2 years ago, dude ran for over 1,600 yards at Arkansas.
Sure.
Last year, there were some injuries that slowed him down. And if Rocket Sanders is the Rocket Sanders of 2 years ago, you got yourself probably the best back in the SEC. But Oscar Attaway is good insurance. If you look at the numbers at North Texas, I mean, over 700 yards rushing on 123 carries. That's a large number of average yards per. That's 6-something a carry. And again, I know North Texas isn't the SEC, but even if Rocket Sanders is healthy, an Oscar Attaway popping in here for 7, 8, 10 carries a game, to give you a little change up from Sanders. Attaway might be a guy that, not to say he's going to be, oh wow, oh my God, but
sure.
if Rocket Sanders is healthy, you're going to look at Attaway though and go, man, that's a nice change up. That's a nice 1B.
A nice change up and somebody that you can also use in the pass game as well. So kind of use them in a variety of different ways. And again, you just kind of have a different complement of different guys in this running back room compared to what you had a year ago. And Attaway kind of flying under the radar a little bit with Rocket Sanders, but definitely somebody that could be a big contributor here.
And we'll continue to look at some of these transfer portal guys through the hour here on Football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors, as we keep this conversation going. We'll look at a couple more in the next segment as well. Also, today, 5:15 today, we'll be giving away our tickets for the South Carolina-Clemson game at Founders. I still think you can get in and sneak in if you go to our YouTube channel, The Game TV, and subscribe. Then pop to 1075thegame.com. Look on the little flippy thingy for the rivalry Friday night ticket giveaway. Click there, fill it out. You still have a little bit more time to get in. We're going to do the drawing at 5:15, the winner of the tickets to go see South Carolina and Clemson at Founders on Friday. Again, the drawing will be done at 5:15. We'll get back in here, look at some more of the transfer portal additions for the South Carolina Gamecocks next. It's football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach.
Welcome back in. It's the halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford along with you on this Wednesday afternoon. Reminder again, tonight, 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip for the men's team in action, taking on Texas A&M on the road as they get closer and closer to wrapping up their regular season for basketball and hopefully doing more to secure a spot in the NCAA tournament, as that's only a couple weeks away here. Obviously, got to get through the SEC tournament as well, but feeling pretty good about where South Carolina sits as of right now. Jump back into our conversation. We're talking a little bit about Oscar Attaway as well as Jared Brown in that last segment about guys in the transfer portal and what their potential is for this upcoming team. And, you know, it's really crazy. And look, South Carolina ended up pulling in one of the best transfer classes out of the entire country this past year, having to go back and see just how many guys they did bring in, because it's a solid number. They brought in a lot of new bodies here.
Yeah, and I think, look, you obviously got to mine it. And if you're not bringing in like Ohio State brought in like glitzy stars, right?
Sure.
They brought in the Will Howards. They brought in Judkins, a running back from, Ole Miss. They brought in people. They brought in the DB from Alabama. Mm-hmm. They brought in like wow dudes, right? So the flip side of bringing in the wow dudes is bringing in a nice amount of dudes.
Sure.
And it's the old saying, you take as much as you can and you throw it against the wall. And there are a bunch of guys here that either have been productive, like Rocket Sanders 2 years ago at Arkansas. We looked at Oscar Attaway. Again, it's a group of 5 school, North Texas, but still guys who've been productive. Also guys from bigger schools who – their numbers might not wow you, whether you're looking at regular numbers, you're going to Pro Football Focus, whatever, but they can play a role if you're using them in the right way to what you do, like a DeAndre Jules from Pitt. You can go look around at stats and go, oh, okay, solid. But maybe with what South Carolina wants to do this year defensively and the fact that, he's 310 pounds, that, that might be a guy that's going to fit what you got going on. And look, old Pat Narduzzi's a little bit of a curmudgeon at Pitt, but you know what? Defensively, they were terrible last year.
Sure. Which
is unlike Pitt at times. But Narduzzi had a lot of good things to say about DeAndre Jules and his ability and potential. So he's another guy. He might just be part of a bigger rotation, and he might not, wow you, and you go, oh, my God, look at this guy making big splash plays. But what he can be is the type of glue type of dudes you need up front to do the dirty work to enable you to have a really good defense. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and when we talk about the defensive front for South Carolina, it is so senior heavy. You had, Hemingway and Boogie Huntley and Nick Barrett and all those guys that are coming back. TJ Sanders coming back for another year. And then you add guys like DeAndre Jules as well as Markel Goodwine, who comes over from Alabama. There's so much experience in this room. And again, we don't know how big of a part that Jules is going to play, but like you said, being able to rotate him in, and if he's playing 20% of the snaps, that's fine. And kind of seeing how he can contribute. But never too bad. It's never a bad thing to have as many bodies in the room as they have there.
Yeah, and in a rotational basis to keep guys fresh. That means, in the fourth quarter, your defensive lineman, you got fresh bodies because you have a good rotation.
Right.
And you just that's another important part of this is, look, not everybody can have flashy stats. Defensively, some dudes have to occupy blockers. They have to kind of, they have to get in the way, so to speak, so other guys can make plays. And you need a bevy of guys basically up front for a nice rotation defensively. I love Kyle Kennard. Kyle Kennard and Jared Brown are my 2 favorite dudes in this thing. Kennard gets after quarterbacks, whether you look at just, he got 6 sacks, or if you look at his Pro Football Focus grades, rushing the passer. Kyle Kennard's nice to have coming off the edge. He's a junior. He's a senior. He was a junior last year, so this guy's a veteran. He's going to help your pass rush. Look, you hope Dylan Stewart can be wow, right?
Sure.
And not to say he can't, but if you're putting your eggs in the basket of a freshman to come in and be your productive edge pass rusher, that's a hit or miss scenario.
Right.
A guy like Kennard has shown you he can do it. He's got experience doing it. And now you bring in a guy
sure,
has the resume. So now you look at Dylan Stewart and go, man, we're not expecting you to, we're not putting pressure on you to be the guy.
Well, here's the thing. You just want some kind of presence from the edge room this upcoming year, because it was so non-existent last year. Strachan had his moments, certainly, but for the most part, there was like no pass rush coming off the edge. So whether it is Kennard, whether it is Gilbert Edbrun making his return to South Carolina, or one of the younger guys, Dylan Stewart, people forget about Desmond Umeazulu, who's going to be going into his second year. Whoever that guy is, you just hope that we have some level of production out of that room.
Do not forget about old Des U.
Yeah.
We do this. This is what we do. He was the shiny thing last year. The 4-star comes in, edge pass rusher. He played snaps, but he never really popped last year.
Sure.
Hopefully it's called developing.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully the Des U we see as a sophomore, with some of the run he got as a freshman, and a year in the weight room, and a year at the nutrition table, and a year of experience of getting out there going, wow, these SEC offensive linemen, I gotta learn some stuff.
Right.
Whether it's a swim move or whatever. Hopefully you see Des U start to be what you were hoping it would be in his sophomore year. Yeah, do not sleep on that cat. He's got a lot of physical ability, and guys develop in different levels and stages. And, yeah, Gilbert Edmond, he was coming along 2 years ago here. Again, he wasn't Jadeveon Clowney, but he was coming along 2 years ago here, and they went to Florida State and kind of had a lost year. Now he's back, and that was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we'll see what he can bring you from the edge as well.
And I think with Gilbert Edmond, it's a high upside, low downside type of situation with him. Again, somebody that's been in this program before. Now the room's going to look a whole lot different than when he was here 2 years ago. But you mentioned that upside potential that he had if he would have stayed here at South Carolina, that unfortunately we didn't get to see on full display when he went down to Florida State. But he's coming back in here, back to a program that he's familiar with, and we'll see how he slides in. If he ends up being great off the edge, that's fantastic. If he doesn't, again, he's just another body in the room that is pretty well filled out at this point in time.
A lot of depth up front this year, interior and edge on the defensive front. The other guy, and again, this is more feels like a developmental piece, but we could be wrong. Could pop a lot quicker than we thought. Is Jawaan Howell from South Carolina State? Dude averaged 8 yards a carry. I get it, South Carolina State, I understand, but if you average 8 yards a carry anywhere, that's eye-popping stuff, man.
Well,
it just is.
It's kind of one of those things, and I don't know the specific reasons why he ended up in FCS as opposed to FBS out of high school, but it could be, okay, well, maybe he's an inch too short, maybe he's a step too slow, whatever it may be, but there's something to be said about real game experience. And again, if you have a high-level running back, you expect him to perform like that against FCS competition. So we'll see how he jumps up, from there up to FBS. The difference between him and like a Mario Anderson who came from D2 to D1 is you're not kind of putting him in a spot where he has to be your number one guy. Again, Rocket Sanders is your number one back as long as he's healthy. Knock on wood, he stays healthy. But between Attaway, Jawaan Howell, like those two guys will get to play as much as they can prove they're worth playing, essentially.
The good news about Howell, he's got 3 years of eligibility.
Yeah.
So next year isn't like, wow, we got you for 1 year thing and then you're taking off. I mean, Howell can, wait his turn. In a perfect world, Sanders and Attaway are gone.
Sure.
And then Howell will be part of the next group up. So we'll see. The thing with Howell, too, and, just kind of reading different reports on him, I didn't see a lot of South Carolina State last year.
Yeah.
But what I read, patient runner, good vision, and those are two important things with a back. Can you be patient and wait for plays to develop in front of you and you're blocking to develop? And do you have good vision? That's one of the things we never talk about with backs is vision. Because a back with good vision, they get to the right hole. They make the right read. They make a guy miss because they see it. Vision's a real important thing. So Howell's going to be an interesting player, maybe not this year, but in 2 years.
Right.
So Jawaan Howell, transfer from South Carolina State. We will continue to pick through this week as we look through the transfer report. Just kind of refresh your brain on the guys coming in for South Carolina in this upcoming football season. All right, so $225, Tyler Head. That's where we're at. No Grand Slam yesterday.
We came close.
We did. 3-run bomb from Gavin Casas. It's the Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union Grand Slam giveaway. The pot is up to $225. $25 gets added every game if a Gamecock does not hit a Grand Slam. Very easy to get on this thing. You go to 1075thegame.com. You register. You'll see it on that little flippy thingy, media roll, whatever you want to call it. You see it. You click on Grand Slam giveaway. You fill out the form. You got to do this once a week to keep yourself in the running. It is the Grand Slam giveaway from Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. $225 coming up on Friday for the South Carolina Clemson game at Founders. So just go and get in on that. We'll get back in here. Our Firehouse Sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100 is next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, rolling till 3 here on the game. Yeah. Woo! How can you not just like, you have to do that with your head during the song.
You get hyped up.
You can't help it. If you're watching game TV, you're like, you having a seizure, Tara? No, that's the tune, man. You got to roll. You got to roll. No matter if it's pretty or not, you just got to do it.
That's right.
You got to do it. Your head might hurt later. You might projectile vomit, but you got to do it. You just got to start head bopping. All right, let's get our Firehouse sub text 803-404-6100. What do we got for this hour, Tyler?
Yeah, so we'll jump back to basketball here. I don't know if you saw what happened last night between Texas Tech and Texas with the fans being unhappy and chucking some things on the court. A nameless texter who is in Texas, apparently, asked us, do y'all think schools should be fined for fans throwing objects onto the court/field
Yes.
as a means of having crowd control? Yes, but I don't think that causes any more crowd control than what you already have.
No, I mean, again, fans throw stuff. You're not finding the fan.
Yeah,
You're not walking with the fan going, hey, we caught you. That's $100.
exactly.
We take Venmo. Come on.
I guarantee you, when the Tennessee fans threw mustard on the field a couple years ago, they were not thinking about the potential fine the school was going to face.
Remember the golf ball almost hit Lane Kiffin?
That's right.
They're not going, hey, Jimmy, don't throw that. School's going to get fined.
I was just saying, now you do run into a situation last night where there was an administrative foul that occurred against Texas Tech because of the fans throwing things onto the court. So you can hurt your team in that instance.
Absolutely.
But again, fans aren't thinking about that when they're upset enough to start throwing things on the field.
I remember
or court.
this. Texas was up by 50.
Yeah, it was a blowout.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, yes, there should be fines. You're throwing stuff on the court's unacceptable. We can sit here all day long and go about the court storming thing and the field storming thing back and forth. And, there are people that dig it, people that, look, at the end of the day, don't be that guy.
Right.
And throw stuff on the court. Well, what are you doing? I mean, again, I get it. You got beer muscles. You think you can throw right now really far, and you're emotional for whatever reason, and you decide you want to throw stuff on the court because you don't like a call or don't like whatever. It's dumb, and there's no reason to throw stuff out on the court except either you're liquored up or you're really emotional, and either way, maybe you need a talking to.
Well, and I think it's just as dangerous for other people in the stands because you may be 2 levels up and think you can chunk something all the way down to the court or the field, but you don't have that arm strength like you used to, and you end up hitting someone in the back of the head.
Your beer muscles aren't as beer muscly as you thought they were. It's like, oh God, oops,
Right.
Oops, sorry.
Right.
So yeah, you should get. I mean, yes, the school should get fined. I mean, if you could find the person throwing it, that would be great.
Sure.
But yeah, it's just that one to me. It's unacceptable in every way, shape, or form. Throwing stuff on the court.
Right.
No, don't do it. Did you see at the end of the Mississippi State Kentucky game last night? They actually put up on the scoreboard about rushing the court.
I did see something about that.
And
Mississippi State had that in hand for a while.
Well, I want to see what the score was after they put that up on the board.
Well, it's funny because, and I always ask everybody on our shows here, what they want as far as sound for the next day and stuff. And this is about halfway through the game, and Jay said Kentucky basketball, assuming that they were going to lose that game, and Cal would have something, quote worthy to say after the game. And obviously they ended up coming back, ended up winning the game, and asked him, I was like, still want that now? Not so much. But yeah, there was. Maybe that's counting your chickens before they hatch. Like, hey, we got them with someone locked up. Make sure you don't storm the court. But that
was
obviously
funny.
didn't end up being a problem.
Yeah, and of course, people always do this. I always think it's so funny. Yeah, see, you jinxed us. Nice job.
Yeah, that's why you lost.
And I've always loved that because it's always, yes, everything was fine. You put that up there, and the basketball gods went, oh, yeah? Watch this.
By the way, let's say Mississippi State held on and won that game. You think that message on the video board is going to keep fans off the court?
Absolutely, Tyler Head. Sure, it would have. Everybody would have went, everybody stop.
Hey, they said they don't want us on the court.
Stop. No, you get away. Did you see the board? Don't go near there. Of course not. Nobody would have cared. They had more security. Did you see they were showing the security in the stands?
I didn't see the security.
Yeah, they had a little bit more security, but put it this way, I'm going to say this nice. Not the most intimidating looking security.
Did they have, I don't know what their arena holds, they have 4,000 security guards?
Well, that's what you're going to need.
I was going to say, the fans still outnumber you, so.
Yeah, it's just, look, that's going to be the ugliness. If you want to get all, and you said this, I think yesterday, and I'm totally with you, someone's going to get all military here.
Sure.
At some point. And I just picture that bad moment where some college student gets tased by some gun-ho security dude.
A college student with a heart condition or something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's going to be the worst
goes
possible
sideways,
thing.
right.
It's going to be so ugly, and it's going to be a crazy situation. There's going to be lawsuits. Hopefully, nobody dies.
Right.
I am totally with you that this thing at some point is going to have that moment.
Well, yeah, we could go the Jay Billis route and just throw everyone in prison.
Yeah, because that's going to work.
Yeah. Do you imagine sitting in like a jail cell and like, what are you in for? Grand Theft Auto. I killed 3 people, stormed the court at a college basketball game.
I had that happen once. I got a minute. I'll tell you. So I can't go in the whole story, but I got arrested because I didn't have money for a toll.
Right.
So I went to the toll booth, and they automatically run your driver's license.
Okay.
Little did I remember that I had a couple of tickets when I was a teenager. Now I'm like 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And I never paid them because I hid them in my underwear drawer so my dad wouldn't find them. So my license became revoked without my knowledge.
Oh, no.
And so my license was revoked, which meant I got arrested. So long story short, I ended up in a jail cell in Baltimore City, and I'm in there, and all of a sudden they bring in real criminals. Man, what you in for? I just stabbed a guy. What are you in for? I just ran a guy with my car. What are you in for? I didn't pay the toll. I didn't look like much of a tough guy.
You weren't the leader of that group, is what you're telling me.
Nah, matter of fact, it was good that we had bars separating because I wasn't like I don't think I would have been treated well. Let's just put it that way. And can I tell you something else? That's when I had my long hair and earrings.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Ready? My license was revoked because I didn't pay a ticket. I'm in jail because my license was revoked. So I hid my tickets in the underwear drawer, Spike. Yeah.
That's a good way to wrap up the hour.
There you go. There's a little. I got so many of those. All right, it's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. That wraps up football. Brought to you by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Next up, what's trending at 2 from Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions here on the Game. Halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head as we cook this sucker for one more hour. Then Jay and Elijah will take over with the postgame show. Don't forget tonight, 8 o'clock pregame, 8:30 tip from College Station. South Carolina taking on Texas A&M. It'll be here at 107.5 in Columbia and our affiliate at 100.3 in Myrtle Beach. Last night, heard on 107.5 the game here in Columbia, 100.3 in Myrtle Beach. South Carolina Gamecocks get the 7-1 win over Gardner-Webb. It wasn't as easy as a lot of folks thought. You know, we were all sitting around last night before the game started saying, I wonder when they 10-run them.
Right.
Didn't happen that way.
Yeah, it took a couple innings for the offense to kind of get things in gear, but when they did, oh boy, did they.
Hey, let's get the Gavin Casas 3-run bomb. Yeah. You got that there, man? That'd be cool to hear a little highlight there from Gavin Casas going yard.
Casas swinging a deep drive in the air to right field. Deep into the Columbia night, it will go. A 3-run homer for Gavin Casas. Breaks this one open for the Gamecocks. 6-1, South Carolina in the bottom of the fifth.
You know, Mark Kingston, postgame, had talked about Casas, and we're going to get that here in a second, like the last 12 at-bats. Casas has gotten more locked in, and the 3-run homer, obviously a big blow in that game. It was it 3-1 when the homer was hit, or 4-1? I'm trying to remember.
I think it was 3-1.
That's what I thought. I thought they doubled it.
Yeah, that just obviously blew it wide open. But yeah, he's somebody that through that first series against Miami of Ohio, I think he sat out the Queens, or not the Queens game. Yeah, I think it was the Queens game last week, and played against Winthrop the day before. But yeah, struggling through those first couple games, got things in gear this past weekend with a pretty solid performance against Belmont, and then obviously continuing that last night with his home run.
All right, and here's Mark Kingston talking about the Casas bomb last night.
I was quite happy with it. I was quite happy with it, as was everybody. He's been really swinging the bat well, probably for his last 12 at bats. I would say, like, you kind of saw the light go on recently, where I think it all started with that 2-strike double he hit in the left center field off the wall. Ever since that, he's been really good. He's been locked in. He's been staying on the ball much better, and he's been the Gavin Casas that he was last year, and it's really good to see.
And if you get Gavin Casas back to being the Gavin Casas he was last year, obviously it's a huge plus. I mean, look, the middle of that lineup, once everything gets going, I mean, obviously you're hoping Ethan Petrie doesn't have a sophomore slump, and so far Petrie's been good. Cole Messina, a little struggle in the beginning, did hit a couple homers on the weekend, could have had 2 more if it wasn't for the wind. So Messina will actually, I mean, obviously we'll get it going at some point. Causey's been a nice addition, the North Carolina transfer. And if Casas starts rolling, that's a nice middle of the order for South Carolina, no doubt.
No, absolutely. And again, you're early on in the season. They kind of mixed up the lineup a little bit yesterday as well, where you can kind of move some pieces around, kind of figure out what you want to do in terms of who's going to be batting where. But yeah, this is a lineup that has the potential to be good from top to bottom. And
speaking of those lineup changes, let's get cut 8 from Coach Kingston. Kind of like the thought process behind the lineup changes.
All of the above. To answer your question, all of the above. You know, sometimes you go with the hot hitter, regardless of whether it's versus a righty or lefty. Sometimes you go with the left-right matchups and you platoon. Some lefty pitchers, just lefties have an impossible task against them, so you stack the lineup with all righties. Some righties crush lefties, and so you got to get them in the lineup. There's a lot of different layers to it, but at the end of the day, you try to go with who you think gives you the best chance to win that day based on how they hit that type of pitcher, how that pitcher does against your type of hitters, and then you try to stack your lineup with as many of the hitters that will make it tougher on the pitcher as possible.
So you get the method behind the madness a bit. And it's good to have versatility. I mean, you know, in a perfect world, you roll 9 guys out there, right, or 8 everyday players out there, and your DH, and these are your guys. But it doesn't work that way. You have to platoon. You have to move guys in and out. You have guys with hotter hands. There's going to be guys who have been good matchups, and there's sometimes guys who are bad matchups, and you want to sit them down and put somebody else in.
Sure.
It feels like this team has some depth to it. We'll see how it plays itself out, especially in the outfield.
Right.
Ton of depth. So we'll probably see more lineup tinkering, especially early in the year, which leads to how interesting this weekend series is going to be against Clemson. Obviously, the biggest test of the year. It's a nice early season test. It's just kind of, okay, where are we at?
Sure.
We're going to play a top 10 team, and let's just see how we stack up at this point in the season against a squad like that. Now, again, is Clemson a top 10 team? They are right now. We'll see where they are at the end of the year. Sometimes you'll play a team early in the year, and they're ranked at a certain spot, and then you come back later in the year and you go, what happened to those guys?
Right.
So, but right now you're looking at a top 10 team in Clemson, and this is your first chance to think what they call the old litmus test.
Yeah,
to
pretty
see
much.
where you're at this time of the year.
You know, the teams that you've played so far this year are not teams that are going to be factors in the postseason, more likely than not, or teams that could have a shot at, making it to Omaha. And Clemson is one of those teams, as they are in typically on a year in, year out basis. So you get the opportunity, and Clemson's hitting a lot of home runs. They got 17 on the season so far. So you're going up against a true power team this weekend. And look, we've given a lot of compliments to the pitching staff so far and what they've done through the first 9 games. And it's really going to be tested this weekend against Clemson to see if you can keep those numbers low against a team that's going to be able to take you deep.
And look, if you struggle, it's not the end of the world.
No, of course
It's not. If your pitching staff, has a tough time, or offensively you can't get going, whatever, it's not the end of the world. Absolutely not the end of the world. Remember what South Carolina did to Florida in the regular season last year?
Right.
Who won the Super?
It'd be Florida.
And again, South Carolina wasn't the same team they were earlier because of injuries and some different factors. But still, the point is losing a series in the regular season does not stamp you anything. It just really, you just can't lose too many of them, right?
Sure.
So, all right, one other cut here from Coach Kingston talking about, and look, Eddie Copper seems like for right now is the midweek guy. The freshman, another good outing, and here's Coach Kingston talking about the young fellow's performance.
Well, for right now, what he's doing, he just needs to keep building on it, and he's comfortably our Tuesday guy right now. 5 innings on 61 pitches for a freshman is incredible. So we'll just continue to run him out there in that role and let him hopefully continue to get better and better. So it's really good to be able to get freshman experience on a Tuesday where you still feel like you have a chance to win. It serves 2 purposes, so that's a good thing.
So we'll see what happens moving forward this weekend against Clemson. As South Carolina and the Tigers will go at it. Of course, Friday at Founders, Saturday at Segra. We'll have our special kind of get you geeked up for the Battle of Bull Street on Saturday. Tyler and Elijah broadcasting live from the Fan Fest deal inside of Segra.
That's right.
That will be 10 to 11:30 on Saturday. We got a full boat on Saturday. 10 to 11:30. Our nice little get you hyped up pregame show for the Battle of Bull Street with Elijah and Tyler. Then 11:30, Gamecock basketball pregame, and then 12 o'clock tip versus Florida. Then later on that afternoon, 3:45 4 o'clock first pitch?
4 o'clock first pitch on Saturday.
South Carolina, Clemson, Battle of Bull Street from Segra here, and it's going to be on the game in Columbia and in Myrtle Beach, the basketball and baseball games. Our exclusive pregame show will be only on 107.5 The Game in Columbia on Saturday. That's what we got going on. And then Sunday, obviously, the game at Clemson at the Upstate. Again, nice little, let's just see where we're at right now in the season.
And look, teams get better. Teams get worse as the season goes along. So what you are this weekend is not what you're going to be for the rest of the year. Again, it just gives you a step up in competition that, is on par with what you're going to see on a week in, week out basis in the SEC. 8 SEC teams ranked in the top 25 right now. So it's going to be tough as it always is on a week in and week out basis. And this gives you the opportunity to kind of measure up where you're at right now.
Give you a taste. Just give you a taste. All right, men's basketball tonight. We've talked about it pretty much through the show. Going to Texas A&M to face the Aggies. And here, Buzz Williams is very interesting. When we talked to our buddy Graham from Gig'em last hour, the thought and the feeling on Buzz Williams. Look, Buzz Williams, if my memory serves me, I know Buzz Williams got to a couple Sweet 16s at Marquette. I can't remember if he got to an Elite 8 or not, but he got to a couple Sweet 16s.
He's got to be one of the longest tenured coaches in the SEC now.
5
years. He's been
years.
there for a while, which 5 years shouldn't sound like a long time, but you think about the turnover of all the other programs, like he's definitely up there.
So, you know what's funny when you go into a Google search and when you hit Buzz, the first thing that comes up is Lightyear?
You're telling me that Buzz Williams isn't more popular than Buzz Lightyear?
Stunning. So if you look at Buzz Williams, because again, off the top of my head does not work as well as it used to. Buzz Williams at Marquette rolled to two Sweet 16s and an Elite 8. His second to last year, Marquette was a trip to the Elite 8. Then he bounced off to Virginia Tech. Last year in Blacksburg, another trip to the Sweet 16. So Buzz Williams has 3 runs to the Sweet 16 and an Elite 8 roll. That's, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9, 10 trips to the NCAA tournament. 4 of those ended in the second weekend.
Right.
So he's a good tournament coach. has only got to the tournament once at A&M in 5 years. I don't think he gets there this year either, unless they go on a real big run here at the end. So we'll see. But I thought it was an interesting thought of, hey, a lot of fans want to see Buzz Williams out. Again, do you make decisions based on message boards? Well, you better not. But again, Buzz Williams, it just hasn't happened yet at A&M.
I say depends on if the people posting on those message boards are the high dollar donors or not.
Right. So I think A&M misses the tournament. Probably next year is the hot seat for Buzz.
Yeah.
But the 2-year run, 21-22, 22-23, 52 and 23. Problem was one of those years ended in the NIT. A 27-win season ends in the NIT, but you got a lot of wins. You got some wins in the NIT to pad that. But
Right.
And then last year you got shot out of the gym by Penn State in the first round of the NCAA tournament. All right, here's Buzz Williams, though, talking about, is he surprised when it comes to success of the South Carolina Gamecocks this year?
When we play a team this late, unless I'm watching them in preparation for an opponent, I don't really know much about them. And so I'm glad that we're playing on Wednesday instead of Tuesday, because I didn't know all of their guys. I didn't know their style of play. They're a completely different team than the team that we played in Columbia last year in regards to personnel, for sure, but also in stylistically on both sides of the ball. And so it's, in many respects, that's why I'm not dressed right. I mean, I've just been studying since the last time I saw you guys. And I've enjoyed watching their team, but I'm not sure that there's a team similar. There's Vanderbilt similar in regards to pace, but I think one of the reasons they've had the success that they've had thus far within our league and outside of our league is there's not a lot of teams constructed the way that they are with the talent that they have playing the way that they're playing.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Graham Harmon brought up a very interesting perspective when he said South Carolina is who Texas A&M wishes they were this year. I thought that was a pretty interesting answer.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Yeah, look, it's very interesting. It's only the second year of Lamont Paris. But what Buzz Williams just said, there's no team like them constructed the way they are and the way they play. That was the same thing said about Bo Ryan's teams at Wisconsin.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to get too dorky about it, but Wisconsin would play guards in the post. Wisconsin would have 6'9" guys shooting threes. They ran an offense with certain type of motions and things of that nature that just drove people crazy. They played really slow. They grinded on defense. And you can see some of that in this year's South Carolina team with Lamont Paris. Not everything is equal, but you see some of that stuff with this team.
Sure.
The sum of the parts, when you take it apart, you go, oh, okay. But you put it together, and you got the number 4 team in the SEC. So, interesting perspective from Buzz Williams. All right, we will continue with What's Trending at 2, sponsored by our good friends at Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. What are the Cowboys going to do about Dak Prescott? And I've been hearing a lot of this, expanding the NCAA tournament. I've said I don't like it. Will I watch it? Sure. Do I like it? No. We'll try to go into why I don't like it. But those two things coming up in What's Trending at 2 here on the Halftime Show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the Game. Oh, the halftime show, What's Trending at 2 with Terry Ford and Tyler Head. Brought to you by our friends at Gamecock Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions. I had a brain cramp there, Tyler.
Well, I guess we can share the breaking news that we just learned in the last break.
I know. From our correspondent at the State House, Dave Adair.
It's a dark day in Columbia.
Captain Dave is not a happy man. Let's just leave it at that. So we're going to the commercial break. This is what's trending at 2. Forget everything else.
Right.
And Dave comes in and he's talking like Foghorn Leghorn. I say, look at the State House. I say, Terry, look at the State House. I'm like, what, Dave? This is unacceptable. Chicken hawk. And Dave and Dave is like lost. Dave's pacing back and forth. He's pulling all the blinds and shades. What, Dave? Look at the top of the State House. What, Dave? You see it? A bird? No. The Clemson flag is flying on top of the State House. This is unacceptable. Dave's not happy. So we said to Dave, we'll get Elijah to grab his phone, shoot some video. We need you to shimmy up to the top of the State House and rip that Clemson flag down.
King Kong it.
And you just and you said it perfect. Swap the drones like you're King Kong. So if we can get Dave, and Dave's fired up right now, so we might get him to do it.
Well, see, here's the thing. Like, I feel like not enough people know Dave well enough that, yes, you know, he loves his Larkin Poe and all that kind of stuff, his honey buns, but there's nothing, and I mean nothing in this world that Dave hates more than anything related to Clemson.
Dave hates Clemson more than he loves Larkin Poe.
That is a great way to put it.
Dave is, I mean, when you and I were doing the pregame shows over at the party lot at Sound and Images on Bluff Street, I have never heard Dave laugh so hard in my entire life.
When Florida State beat Clemson up there in Memorial Stadium this year, crazy game, the fumble and all that kind of stuff. Dave was keeping us updated every 5 minutes.
Dave was giddy with happiness. I've been around Dave about 2.5 years. I've never seen Dave happier than that morning or that afternoon when Florida State beat Clemson. Yeah. Dave is laughing in our headsets the whole time, giving us play-by-play updates.
If Dabo Swinney was on fire on the side of the road, I don't think Dave would pee on him to put him out.
No, he would not. By the way, it's one of the great quotes ever. Wasn't that James Harrison, Pittsburgh's hero linebacker, about Roger Goodell?
That may have been the first one. I know it gets thrown around a lot.
I love that one.
That was James Harrison got a few fines in his time.
Yes. Matter of fact, that's a great line to repeat. If it's applicable to your life,
that's right.
That fits perfect. All right, so besides Dave, also what's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions, by the way, 2 locations, Sand Hills and in Lexington. All right, so the Cowboys have an issue that it will get figured out in the offseason. It just will. This stuff always gets figured out. Dak Prescott has a cap hit this year of $59.5 million.
Right.
There is no way on this earth that Dak Prescott will go into the season with a cap hit of $59.5 million.
Right.
It's not going to happen. The Cowboys will get it restructured with Dak. Dak will be happy with the deal. The Cowboys will kick the salary cap number down, kick the can down the road, and the world will be okay. But because, and I get why, the media world when it comes to the NFL is dying for, I'm talking about national media, is dying for any Cowboy news possible.
Sure. Because
the Cowboys, they aren't America's team. They're the most polarizing team in America. They'll look for anything. And this, oh my God, what are they going to do about Dak? It's very simple. They're going to get it done because Dak had a really good year. Dak had a fabulous year until that playoff game.
He significantly bounced back from the year before.
Yeah, he was among the most highly rated quarterbacks in a ton of statistical categories this year in the league until the playoff game. So Dak is going to be the Cowboys quarterback, but it will not be a $59.5 million cap hit. It gets restructured. By the way, do you know that is not the biggest cap hit in the NFL? It's the second biggest cap hit.
Who's the biggest?
You want to give it a shot?
Is it a quarterback?
Oh, it's a kicker. No, it's a quarterback.
Contract year.
Think about it.
Lamar signed his thing last year.
Who got the most gigantic, incredibly ridiculous contract a few years ago by a franchise that does a lot of ridiculous things?
Oh, man.
Guy played quarterback in this state in college.
Oh, is it Trevor Lawrence?
Deshaun Watson.
Deshaun Watson, okay. Forgot about
Deshaun
him.
Watson's cap hit
I'd kind of removed him from my memory because he was out for most of the season anyway. But yeah, that ridiculous deal that the Browns signed him to, unreal.
Want to hear the cap hit on Deshaun?
Sure.
Guaranteed. I believe it's $63 million.
Good Lord.
That and the cap is going up to $224 million. I believe that's the number.
Yeah.
That's a fourth or over a fourth of your cap hit.
Man.
Yeah. Tough to put a team together that way.
You know what's funny? They just literally pulled Joe Flacco out of retirement and he took him to the playoffs. So you could be doing a whole lot better for a whole lot less.
Yes. Also, what's trending it too here on the game. This is also very interesting. All right, there was a survey done surveying NFL players. More than 1,700 players participated in this NFLPA survey. That's the National Football League Players Association.
Mm-hmm.
Players were asked to grade their teams on a wide variety of subjects, ranging from team facilities to coaching staffs to owners. Top two teams overall in the survey. Number one, doesn't surprise me because the culture has been changed so much. Miami Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McDaniel is a massively player-friendly coach.
Right.
And that whole culture is very player-friendly in Miami. Number two, this is kind of a surprise. Minnesota Vikings. I think because the Minnesota Vikings are mediocre in everything for the most part.
Sure.
Every now and then they pop and have a really good year, but usually they're in that, 8 and 9, 9 and 8, 10 and 7 wheelhouse.
Yeah, they're never like terrible, but they're usually never great either.
So whenever they're, great at something, it always surprises me. So they finished second in the survey. The two-time defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs, you know where they were?
Are they towards the bottom?
There's 32 teams in the NFL. Kansas City was 31st.
Ooh.
But here's the other part. This is the thing that's really an outlier on it. Out of coaches, Andy Reid ranked first.
And I believe I saw that their owner, Clark Hunt, ranked dead last. Is that correct?
Yeah, he's 32nd. Now, these grades were based on what players perceived as a willingness to invest in the team's facilities. Kansas City ranked 26th in food cafeteria category, 31st in nutrition dietary category, 31st in training room, 32nd in training staff.
Think about how much better the Chiefs could be if they were competent in all these areas.
Well, here, ready? The Chiefs stand out also because they ranked poorly in many of these same categories last year.
That's amazing.
Think about that for a minute.
Right.
So you ranked poorly in these categories last year, and are you so tone deaf as an owner that you don't go, wow, our players believe that we rank poorly in nutritionist and dietary, our food and cafeteria setup, our training facilities in general, all of it is substandard to the bottom of the league.
Sure.
We should, because we are looked at as a first-class organization,
Right.
we should upgrade it.
So that begs the question, do you think Clark Hunt even sees this?
Doesn't somebody bring it to him?
You would think, but and here's the thing. Some owners, and we know like Tepper up in Carolina, remove a lot of people that are afraid to be honest with them. So this may be one of those things they keep as far away from him as possible.
Well, here's the example, ready? To that point, the Arizona Cardinals, looked at as a bad organization with a bully owner with a terrible working culture. The Arizona Cardinals last year were near the bottom. They stopped charging players for meals. The idea they charged players for meals shows you what kind of a terrible organization it was.
That's awful.
They stopped charging players for meals, changed the floors and the equipment in the weight room, and added a small family gathering room for game days. The Bengals were criticized following last year's survey for not providing players 3 meals a day. This is mind-numbing, by the way.
Right.
And they made a slight change in that policy. They now offer 3 meals a day at the facility. Why? Well, this shows you, and the Bengals have been a good team recently.
Sure.
Oh, my God, you're not giving 3 meals a day to your players. Your players are the equipment you use for your business. What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, that's right. We can get people on to tell you about the Bengals. Ownership is so cheap. And then the Cardinals, you charge players for meals? Are you serious?
That's insane.
Really? That's like us having one of our lunches upstairs and our market manager Tammy going, oh, by the way, it'll be $10.
Yeah.
Well, what are you doing? You're charging players for meals. But to the credit of Arizona, they stopped doing that.
I would say, what if one of your star players forgets his wallet and can't eat that day and then passes out at practice?
It's crazy. But that's why bad organizations are bad organizations. But the Chiefs are 31st and haven't changed a lot of things from the year before, but they are two-time defending Super Bowl champions. All right, that's what's trending at 2. Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Tradition sponsoring. We'll come back. Gosh, Tyler, it's a 8th?
8th. There is an extra day this year.
What is that?
Greatest day in the history of the world.
Sponsored by 1-800-GOT-JUNK. Next on the Halftime Show on the Game. Another one. Now the other one was like, you had the head banging. This is just like a toe tapper.
Okay, got a lot of
toe tap.
different vibes with our music
Yeah,
here.
I got a little toe tapping action going there. There we go. So we are rolling the halftime show. It's time for the greatest day in the history of the world, which is February 28th. All right, on this day, we don't have a ton this day, but we're going to hit a few. 1940, college basketball is televised for the first time. You ready for this TV station?
Sure.
TV station W2XBS transmits a basketball game, a doubleheader from New York's Madison Square Garden. Pittsburgh plays Fordham, New York University against Georgetown. New York University. Where are they at today?
Ooh.
Exactly.
Do they still have basketball team?
Not in the Big East. So Pitt and Fordham, New York University, Georgetown. On that TV station, just rolls off your tongue. W2XBS. 1940, my friend.
Let's see if they believe they're Division III now. The NYU Violets are a Division III men's basketball team.
Violets. Seriously.
That's what
Violets?
it says.
That's intimidating. We got to find the logo for that. What's the mascot look like? What's the mascot at the game look like?
Hold on. I'm learning here. Let's see.
You doing some learning?
Now, here's something interesting. When they were Division I, they made 6 different tournament appearances.
Oh, yeah.
And they actually appeared in the Division III tournament last year.
There you go.
So
Don't mess with the Violets.
Program with some good history.
There you go. Like CCNY back in the old days.
Yeah, I mean, Sewanee was in the SEC. Chicago State had the first Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah, think about it. Think about it.
Different place 100 years ago.
The Fighting Violets.
That's right.
All right. 1960. The United States hockey team, they beat Czechoslovakia, won the gold medal in Squaw Valley. And it's in California if you've never heard of Squaw Valley. That's interesting because in 1980, Squaw Valley was referenced a lot because that's the last time and the only time the U.S. ever won a gold medal in the Olympics in hockey was Squaw Valley in 1960.
Right.
Until 1980.
Right. Which
is the second and the only other time the U.S. has won the gold medal in hockey in the Olympics. Calvin Murphy on this day in 1981 made the last of his 78 consecutive free throws. An NBA record at the time. Calvin Murphy could play. He was about like 2'6". Calvin Murphy could play, man. He was a player. 78 consecutive free throws. And then on this day, I have 2 more.
Okay.
Now, on this day in 1986, Baseball Commissioner Peter Ueberroth conditionally suspends Dave Parker of the Reds, Keith Hernandez of the Mets, Joaquin Andujar of the A's, Lonnie Smith of the Royals, Enos Cabell of the Dodgers, Jeff Leonard of the Giants, and Dale Bearer of the Yankees for 1 year for drug abuse. After conditions are met, the suspensions are reduced. That was the big cocaine scandal in Major League Baseball. The Pittsburgh Pirate mascot was selling coke.
Really?
Yes. Part of the story. The mascot, the parrot, the mascot was part of this thing. It was crazy. It was crazy. Chick Hearn in 1987, Laker iconic play-by-play man. Chick Hearn called his 2000th consecutive game spanning 22 years. That's an Iron Man streak. And finally, Venus and Serena Williams became the first sisters ever to win WTA Tour events on the same day. Venus won in Oklahoma City. Serena won a title in France. So there is your greatest day in the history of the world, February 28th. I want to get to this really quick. There's been a lot of talk, and I read another thing today about expanding the NCAA basketball tournament. Look, I don't like it. I like it the way it is. I get why it'll get expanded. It's called money. I'm not going to go, I'm never going to watch it again and expand to 96 teams or whatever. No. But here's why. This goes, my fear, not my fear, I know. Forget fear. I know all it's going to be is stuffing the NCAA tournament with a bunch of Power 5 mediocre teams who are finished below 500 in league or right around 500 in league. They're 19 and 15.
Right.
And I don't want to see those teams. If you were going to expand the tournament and give me more teams from mid-majors, for example, I'm going to pick a team. I'm just going to make up a team that goes 27-4 and goes, 17-1 in their league.
Right.
But gets upset in the championship game of their conference tournament. If you want to put those guys in, okay. You're not doing that. You're going to put in, again, a bunch of Power 5 school. I'll give you an example, like Kansas State this year. You're going to get a Kansas State, or you're going to get, look in the SEC, you're going to get Texas A&M, for an example. A team that's underachieved and is barely doing good enough to possibly make a big field.
Well,
that's my problem.
So they talked about this on game day the other weekend and proposed a hypothetical 96-team bracket with this year's slate of teams, and one team that would be like one of the last teams in a 96-team tournament would be LSU. Now, yes, they came and they beat South Carolina the other weekend, but their overall body of work, they're under 500 in conference. They're just a not good team overall, and that is an example of a team that would get in a 96-team field.
I really believe, and I know that this will never happen, if you can't finish 500 in your league, you don't deserve to be in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah,
I just feel that way.
I think that's fair.
I'll give you an example really quick. I'm going to throw this in. There's 32 conferences. This is the misnomer. We have, 355 teams we talked about?
62, I believe.
Somewhere like that. So everybody goes, well, 96 teams, that's a 25 to 30%. That's it. But let's break it down a little bit more. Why it's going to be a lot of Power 5 mediocre schools. There's 32 conferences, right?
Yep.
I went over this the other day, and I was trying to be kind. Out of 32 conferences, 20 are pretty much one-bid leagues.
Yes.
That leaves you 12 leagues that could get multiple bids. Now, obviously, you have a Power 5-ish structure in college basketball because the Big East that's a big basketball league.
Right.
But 20 out of 32 are one-bid leagues. That means out of your 362 teams, 208 of them are part of one-bid leagues. 57% of college basketball is in a one-bid league.
Right. So theoretically, the way that works out, as you mentioned, there are 21 big leagues. That means the other 12 conferences would get an average, if everything was completely even, of 6 teams in from each conference.
And that's going to be mediocrity all over the place.
It is. And look, here's the thing. The SEC would get more, the Big Ten would get more. But, again, you're starting to go down the ladder where, again, LSU, Vanderbilt, teams like this are suddenly getting essentially like the NIT would get added on to the NCAA tournament.
Yes. I don't want to see that. I got zero desire. I mean, I'm going to watch it. What am I saying? I'm going to see it. I mean, I'm a college basketball dork. But for me, I'll give you one real quick. Well, maybe this year might not be great because there's not a lot of dominant teams in the lower level. All right, ready? Vermont. Vermont is 13-1, 23-6 overall. Vermont has dominated the America East. Now, if Vermont gets in the conference championship or in the conference tournament and gets upset, they're done. They're absolutely done. I would rather see Vermont get a shot as a Cinderella. It's going to be a 13 seed or whatever than this mess. Ready? Right. Here's the mess I don't want to see. LSU. I'd rather see Vermont get a shot at being David against Goliath than watch a mediocre to below average LSU team sneak their way into a big expanded field. Does that make sense?
An example of the rich continuing to get richer because guess what? More games, more TV revenue, all that kind of stuff, and that goes into the pockets of the bigger conferences.
Do you think the Power 5 is going to say, sure, let's bring in more of the one-bid league teams in an expanded field?
If the Power 5 had it their way, there would only be 10 or 12 conferences that allow teams into the tournament. You would say, hey, you know what? The Patriot League, you guys are great. Go have your own tournament. We don't want you in ours. 208
out of the 362 teams are in one-bid leagues.
Yeah.
So this idea that, well, but guys, it's 362 teams. Stop it. No, it's not. It's not weighted that way. It's not weighted fairly where everybody has the same chance. No, it's not. And that's my point of this. It's just going to be a bunch of mediocre Power 5 schools getting into the NCAA tournament. You're not going to be adding more of the little guy or the medium guy. You're taking a bunch of teams and throwing them in the NCAA tournament field.
Right.
All right, so we'll get back in here. Our final segment of the show, we'll yip with Jay Phillips. Also, we'll get our Firehouse sub text the hour at 803-404-6100. It is the halftime show on the Game. Halftime show, Terry Ford, Tyler Head, wrapping this puppy up. Jay's here. Elijah's in the other room. He was eating something. I tell you what, my man can put away some food.
Sure.
Not you, Elijah.
Sure.
Quite impressed.
I just wanted to listen to Van Halen. I didn't know what'd you say?
All right. And Elijah and Jay will take over through the postgame show. Firehouse sub text of the hour at 803-404-6100. What do you got?
LaDonna weighs in and says, I'm with Dave. I hate all orange things, including, and she made sure to put the P in the middle of this, Clemson.
Yeah, I got a buddy of mine that does that just to make Clemson people very aggravated.
I see that one, then I see the Clem space sun, like with the apostrophe S sun. Yeah,
I've
like
seen that too.
Clem sun. That's a good
I've
one
seen that too.
That was like an editorial cartoon or somebody did like, I don't know, decades ago. There was Clem and it was like a farmer dude with a hay seed, the hay
Right.
stalk coming out of his mouth and then Clem's son. Yeah.
By the way, the reason we're talking about this and we got the text, and thank you for the text, like always, 803-404-6100 on the Firehouse sub text line. Dave comes in here during a break. Dave doesn't really move quick, right? There's no sense of urgency with Dave typically.
That's fair. That's fair.
Dave came in here all fired up.
Yeah.
And he started doing the foghorn leghorn voice.
Okay.
And basically, he's like, I say ya. Look up there on the courthouse. I'm like, what? He goes, see that orange?
State House. Yeah.
That's a Clemson flag in Columbia, South Carolina, flying. Dave was, so we tried to talk Dave into shimmying up there and pulling the flag down.
Yeah, that's we don't need that. Listen, it's Clemson Day at the State House. It's okay.
Dave doesn't care.
Oh,
Dave
I know,
is so,
but he says
remember,
in Columbia, look, I know.
It's for the state of South. I know Columbia is the capital of the state, and Clemson's in the state. But again, Dave, a fine, like you, a proud grad of the University of South Carolina, had no time for that Clemson flag flying on top of the State House.
Now, the only thing that bothers me is when Clemson people go like, well, we are the University of South Carolina. Just stop it. If you want to do that with sports, that's fine. But, I mean, when it comes to the schools, let it go, man. Let it go. We're a small enough state to begin with. Let it go.
Oh,
Gee
man.
whiz.
So, yeah, that's why we got the text, because Dave was quite fired up.
Yeah. No, again, I've said
Looks like he's
before.
mellowed out a little bit out in the other room now. He's all right.
Yeah, no, but if you are wondering why, it is. No, I mean, and Carolina has a day.
Right.
Other schools
Exactly.
have a day
Sure.
at the State House, and they
It
go up
just
there and
happens
hobnob.
to be in the week that they play Clemson in baseball. That's just the odd timing of it.
Yeah, that's a good. I don't know who does the scheduling or anything like that. I couldn't tell you.
So, quite interesting.
I don't need Dave getting fired up about too many things, though.
Yeah. Every now and then something like wakes Dave up.
Yeah.
That was it today.
Well-
We were talking about the most I've ever seen Dave happy was when Florida State beat Clemson last year. Dave was, Dave produces the pregame show, and we're doing the pregame show from the party lot
Sure.
at Sound and Images on Bluff. And Dave is giddy.
He's
Dave is
giddy.
laughing hysterically over because we obviously in Q we communicate with Dave, and Dave is laughing and he's happy and he's giddy. You're like, what is going on? And Dave's going, Florida State's killing Clemson.
Didn't that end up being a really close game?
It was a very close game.
Yeah,
Yes,
31-24.
very close. Remember, Clemson had a shot at the end,
Yeah.
and they couldn't get in the end. They couldn't tie. But yeah, Dave was when Clemson failed at the end of that game. Might be the happiest I've heard Dave in 2.5 years.
Interesting. Even more than when Carolina won in Clemson.
Yes.
Because that was.
I think
I thought that was a
Now,
pretty big
I
deal.
think
man.
Dave, and I said this to Tyler earlier, hates Clemson more than he loves Larkin Poe. I think Dave's hate for Clemson is more than his love for anything else. Ready?
That's
Carolina winning, Larkin Poe, Honey Buns.
Dave is like one of those athletes that hates losing more than they love winning. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
the
saying?
guy that the losing eats him up more than the
Yeah,
winning makes him happy.
All right.
Yeah.
Whatever it takes.
Are you like that? You're a South Carolina grad. How do you roll?
No, well, look, look. Everybody knows that I want them to do well, but I don't have time to wear hate on my sleeve.
Now, let me ask. I'll ask you this.
I'm dead serious. I just don't have time. I don't have time for that.
I'll ask you this. You've been doing this for how many years?
You like a talk show host?
Yeah.
This is 22.
I've been doing this for a little bit longer.
Okay.
as I started doing this, the fan in me slowly doesn't die, but it just readjusts itself.
It has to. You can't come in here wearing it on your sleeve, man.
You have to look at things through a more analytical lens than anything else.
Objective. You
can
have to
still
be objective.
Hope that things go the way, and obviously we're the flagship of the Gamecocks, so hopefully South Carolina wins because that gives us good things to talk about. But maybe the beating your chest fan is not there as much anymore.
It just kind of refigures itself because you can't be like that.
I'm not even really kidding when I say the only like thing like that I have in myself anymore. I don't like the Mets. I don't like the Phillies, and I don't like Chelsea. Like other than that,
what did she do to you, Chelsea Clinton?
Yeah, no.
That's weird.
Like
man.
other than, I don't even hate Tottenham that much. I don't like the Phillies. I don't like the Mets. And the Phillies, by the way, I think are eclipsing the Mets.
And the hate. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I'm like that. I just don't have that.
Bryce Harper more.
Yeah, I don't have that hate in me anymore of stuff.
You
know what I hate? The guy that takes up 2 parking spots at the store and I got to walk an extra half a mile.
Yeah, or the guy that turns on his blower at 7:30.
I hate that guy.
I'm not real big on that.
My hate is the stuff that affects my life.
Maybe one of those in my neighborhood. Not a direct neighbor, I might add, but in my neighborhood.
You going to come here and do 3-6?
Yeah, Brad Crawford, Derek Scott, we're going to have fun.
All right, good deal.
And I got an all-star game poll question.
Tyler, fine job. Halftime show again tomorrow in the game.